You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 573, The Evildoers of Class 350, Monthly Votes, 2. Chapter 573, Chapter 154, The Evildoers of Class 350, Monthly Votes, 2. There were still quite a few ahead, even the top 10. Su Yu walked off the stage. Huang Qifeng was also taken away by the people from the single divine text department. A Ling Yun flew over and took Huang Qifeng away. This time, he didn't erupt with any imposing manner. He didn't even look at Su Yu. That scene just ended. Who knew if he would be misunderstood if he were to erupt with imposing manner again at this time? The Dan and the multi-element divine arts had clashed for many years. This time, he had suffered a great loss. The genius student was heavily injured, the pavilion elder was heavily injured, and the principal personally took action. Whether it was a warning or a rule, no one knew. Furthermore, the principal was terrifyingly powerful. Although they were both mountain and sea experts, the difference was too great. Zheng Yiming didn't even have the time to speak before he was beaten up. Su Yu. At this moment, some people were still thinking about what had just happened, while others were downplaying what had just happened. Wan Mingze took a step forward, and a faint fighting spirit rose in his eyes. His soft shout attracted the attention of many people. "You are very strong." Wan Mingze looked at Su Yu and said in a slightly loud voice, "But we people will not fear your strength. We only hope that you will be stronger, and filled with fighting spirit." This time, Wan Mingze was no longer low-key. He leaped up and landed on the stage. "Senior ranked 93rd, come on up and fight." 91st place was Zheng Yunhui, and 92nd place was Wang Peng, who he had just defeated. Since Wang Peng had lost once, Wan Mingze did not challenge him. Instead, he targeted the next person. Wan Mingze said in a clear voice, "Since the 350th grade has already made their move, then I, Wan Mingze, also want to experience the high-level moves of the seniors." Below the stage, Su Yu looked at him without saying a word. Wan Mingze was about to make his move. On one hand, it was because he saw how powerful Su Yu was and had a fighting spirit. On the other hand, it was also because he wanted to play down what had just happened. As a member of the Wan family, he had the responsibility to stand out at this moment and play down some of the influence. The students who were ranked 93rd were also present at this moment. There was no longer any carelessness or underestimation. A freshman was weak. What a joke. Su Yu had defeated Huang Qifeng, who was ranked 71st, as if it was a game. His actual combat strength was probably close to the top 50 students. Was this called being weak? "Junior brother Wan, let's spar." In the next moment, a male student stepped onto the stage. He did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. The moment he stepped onto the stage, Wen Bing appeared. His willpower burst forth and his acupoints were opened. Zhao Ming was also sighing emotionally. This year, it was really going to be a storm. Originally, 2 months ago, there hadn't been any movements this year. Although there were quite a few freaks this year, many people didn't pay too much attention to it. Now, who dared to be careless? Begin. As the sound of his voice faded, Wan Mingze's willpower burst forth, and divine runes burst forth. 3 Tier 2 divine runes burst forth at the same time. Other people couldn't see the divine runes, so they didn't know how powerful his divine runes were. Su Yu had suffered a loss before. The student ranked 93 was just about to make a move when his spirit suddenly jolted, and his willpower was sealed. In his shock, his blood boiled, and his acupuncture points exploded, trying to break free from the seal of the divine runes. However, Wan Mingze, who had truly unleashed his full combat strength, wasn't completely powerless. 84 apertures lit up. The 7th weight of 1,000 caddies. Taking advantage of the moment when his opponent's willpower was sealed, a small knife appeared in Wan Ming's hand. It was extremely fast as it instantly closed in on that person. The small knife slashed across his body. Pooh, pooh, pooh. A light sound rang out. One after another, vital energy seeped out from the apertures and the apertures were damaged. Wan Mingze discovered his weakness and broke through a few weak apertures. In an instant, more than half of the person's yuan qi was depleted. Under the agitation of his willpower, he was completely sealed by Wan Mingze. His body slumped to the ground, and his willpower was sealed. At this moment, he could only blink his eyes, unable to even speak. Thank you for letting me win. Wan Mingze helped the other party up and unsealed the seal with the divine inscriptions, and an apologetic expression appeared on his face. The person's face was pale. With his acupoints destroyed, he would need to recuperate for a period of time. Of course, it was much better than having his willpower severely damaged, and he would be able to recover very quickly. But, he had been defeated too miserably. Junior brother Wan is amazing. When this student spoke, his voice was filled with bitterness. I haven't even used a single move. What the hell is going on in this batch? Jing Yunhui, who was the first to make a move, was actually the weakest. First, it was Su Yu who shook people's hearts. Then, Wan Mingze displayed his skills and forcefully defeated the top 100 students. What was going on? The students couldn't be bothered to talk about Shanghai anymore. They were too far away from the top 100. Another top 100 student had lost. Wan Mingze had replaced 93rd place. Just now, this person had fallen to 94th place. In this kind of unranked student challenge, the loser wouldn't fall out of the ranking. He would only lose one place. Lin Qing's ranking had fallen from 95th to 97th place. Lu He was currently ranked 100th. Su Yu did not occupy a place. He replaced Huang Qifeng's ranking, and Huang Qifeng replaced Lu He's ranking. On the other hand, Lu He was about to drop out of the top 100. However, Huang Qifeng was severely injured. As long as someone challenged Huang Qifeng at this moment, Huang Qifeng would be eliminated from the ranking. However, probably no one would do that today. However, Huang Qifeng could not recover for a long time, and the people behind him would not give him too much time. No matter how strong the Divine Prose department was, it was useless. If they did not challenge him now, it was just to save face. In 2 days, the people behind him would go up one after another. Huang Qifeng's ranking would soon fall out of the top 100. He won again. At this moment, Lin Qing's expression was extremely complicated. He won again. The new student had once again defeated a top 100 student with great difficulty. In the blink of an eye, she had climbed to the 95th place, and in the blink of an eye, she had fallen to the 97th place. Tomorrow, Lu He would definitely challenge her. In other words, she would lose another place tomorrow. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 574, Class 350's Evildoers, Asking for a Monthly 3. Chapter 574, Chapter 154, Class 350's Evildoers, Asking for a Monthly. After struggling for 2 months, she felt that she would soon have to become a goalkeeper again. Just as she was thinking about this, the two of them suddenly went on stage at the same time. Hu Qiushen glanced at Xia Chan and smiled. He jumped off the stage and said, "You go first." Xia Chan did not say anything. When he left the stage, her voice was a little hoarse as she said, "Senior ranked 95th, please enlighten me." 94th was the one who had just failed. The audience was completely shocked. Was this batch of new students going to completely overturn the top 100 rankings today? The student ranked 95th also had an ugly expression. In the blink of an eye, his ranking had dropped quite a few places. He really didn't believe that this batch of students were all so strong. The two went up the stage. They exchanged blows in an instant. Break, this was what Suyu knew. Xia Chan had grasped the divine language, break, and might have already advanced to rank 2. As for Xia Chan's physical strength, it was also at the 7th layer of the Qianjun realm. It was comparable to the top 100 students. This time, it wasn't that easy. Xia Chan fought with her opponent for 7 to 8 minutes. In the end, she used the Xia family's secret technique, Heaven-Cleaving Blade, to gain an advantage. With one slash, she sent her opponent flying. She was also on the verge of collapse. She won. Even though it wasn't an easy win, for a newbie to kill over the top 100 was already a monstrous performance. Lin Qing had fallen to 98th place. Lu He had officially withdrawn from the top 100. One by one. Hu Qiusheng waited for Xia Chan's battle to end before going up to the stage. Xia Chan and the others had 3 days of immunity after defeating the top 100 students. They could choose not to accept the challenge, so at this moment, they had no intention of fighting again. Hu Qiusheng went up to the stage to challenge the students who were ranked 97th. Although the other students who had been defeated had lost 1 place, no one went up to challenge them. Wan Mingze was powerful, Xia Chan was brave, and Hu Qiusheng was mysterious. He was a civilized master in the true sense of the word. From the beginning to the end, he had been controlling his soldiers from afar. He was very calm. A thin sword pierced through the void and covered the stage. The students ranked 97th had fought with him for 5 minutes, but his sword had pierced through their shoulder blades. Seeing that Hu Qiusheng's willpower was still able to continue fighting, the other party had no choice but to admit defeat. He had never even gotten close to Hu Qiusheng. Hu Qiusheng was ranked 97th, while Lin Qing had fallen to 99th. Lin Qing's face changed. According to the order, if there were any more freshmen to challenge, she would be next. That was because the one ranked 98th was the one that Hu Qiusheng had just defeated. Not to mention guarding the goal, she might even lose her position in the top 100 this time. Zheng Hong, Zhang Hao, Su Meng, and Zhao Shiqi, the 4 evildoers, had yet to challenge. The top 100 rankings are really going to change. Many of the older students sighed. In the blink of an eye, 5 students had reached the top 100. The top 100 rankings were going to change. Previously, Zheng Yunhui had clamored to kick out the top 10 from the bottom. Now, he was about to do it. Zheng Yunhui had also recovered at this moment and was no longer shocked. He roared, "Go! Zhao Shiqi, what are you guys waiting for? There's still a spot. After killing 99, there's still another spot." After killing 99, the remaining top few from the bottom had all been challenged. With the pride of the evildoers, they had been defeated once today, so no one would challenge them again. Therefore, there was only one spot left. That was to defeat Lin Qing, who was ranked 99th, and let her continue to guard the door. Below, Lin Qing was somewhat indignant. What the hell? Beside her, Wulan seemed a little regretful as she muttered, "Sister Qing, it's such a pity. Otherwise, I would have wanted to go on stage too." Her strength was a little lacking, or else she would have wanted to go on stage too. Coincidentally, her opponent was Lin Qing, which was pretty good. Lin Qing cursed in her heart, If you really went on stage, I would still be happy. You stinky girl. You said that the people in your class are all average, all ordinary, all trash. Are these the trash students you were talking about? They are trash, what are we?" Just as she was thinking, the other 4 evildoers looked at each other and looked at each other. Today should be the last match of the top 100. Who would go up? The previous contestants had all won. If they lost, it would be too embarrassing. Sometimes, face was very important. If they were not confident, it would be embarrassing if they went up on stage now. Let me do it. At this moment, Zhang Hao laughed. No one from our Divine Talisman faculty has gone up on stage yet. We can't let your Divine Literature Academy be the only beauty. Senior ranked 99th, go up on stage. Lin Qing cursed in her heart. Don't we have names? Even though she felt aggrieved, when she saw that they weren't from the Divine Talisman department, she felt a lot more relaxed. The strength of the Divine Talisman department shouldn't be that great, right? Very quickly, Lin Qing experienced what a Divine Talisman bombardment was. Zhang Hao wasn't using ordinary Divine Talismans, but the explosive Divine Talismans that were split from his own Divine Runes. Suyu had suffered a great loss that day, and he had no choice but to become a turtle after being blown up. This kind of Divine Talisman split from his own Divine Runes did not consume much energy. What Zhang Hao was fighting was a prolonged battle. Explosion. Explosion. From the beginning to the end, there was only this one move. There was no physical approach, no martial arts favoritism, and it was an explosion. Lin Qing's strength was not weak. After all, he had studied under the genius assistant teacher Wuxia. However, when he met such an unreasonable opponent, Lin Qing Kong had a powerful martial arts technique, but he still could not get close. After being blown up more than 100 times, Lin Qing fell off the stage in a daze. She didn't even know when she was blown off the stage. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao was also panting heavily as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. He was secretly glad that he didn't embarrass the freshman. He almost ran out of willpower. If Lin Qing got close to him after running out of willpower, he would be finished. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 575, The Evildoers of the Class 350, Monthly Votes, 4. Chapter 575, Chapter 154, The Evildoers of the Class 350, Monthly Votes, 4. His physical strength was not strong. Lin Qing was much stronger than him. If he stabbed him with his sword, he would be finished. Lucky. Zhang Hao politely said and left the stage happily. At this point, Lin Qing once again returned to the top 100 and became the goalkeeper of the top 100. Zheng Yunhui, Wan Mingze, Xia Chan, Wu Qiusheng, and Zhang Hao entered the top 10 of the top 100. Su Yu was ranked 71st. On October 3, the 350th batch of freshmen put on an earth-shattering show. The top 100 had changed. The show for number 3 had come to an end. No one challenged him again. They had gained too much today, so many people needed to go back and think about their future. Su Yu was preparing to go to the library at this moment. Others could forget what had happened just now, but he couldn't. Moreover, he was afraid that he would be in a lot of trouble. Huang Qifeng was directly crippled by him, and the elders of the single divine text department were also heavily injured. If he could hold it in, then the single divine text department would be a saint. He probably wouldn't dare to break the rules, but within the rules, Su Yu would definitely be in a lot of trouble. As he was walking, Xia Huyo sneakily caught up from behind. He looked left and right cautiously. Su Yu glanced at him, and Xia Huyo said in a low voice, "Su Yu, I suspect that someone is targeting me. A guard just informed me that the academy seems to be preparing to fuck me again." Su Yu was stunned. "You even bribed the guard?" "Don't look at me, I didn't bribe them." Xia Huyo explained, "It was my elders who bribed them." Su Yu was helpless. Was there a difference? Xia Huyo couldn't be bothered to explain. Of course there was a difference. In fact, it wasn't bribing. Although the academy's guards were the academy's power, in reality, it was the Xia family's power. The guards didn't just listen to the academy's orders, they also accepted the Xia family's commands. Xia Huyo couldn't be bothered to say more about this. He said sulkily, "As expected, there really is an old man who is shameless enough to target me. It must be a pavilion elder, or at least a pavilion elder. Fortunately, I'm smart enough to use an IOU. Not far away, Jia Mingjin accidentally passed by. Very good. I'm that old man who is shameless. He could not be bothered to look for trouble with you today. He still had to look for one Tiansheng. One Tiansheng suddenly attacked Qing Yiming, so he had to ask about the specific situation. After he was done with this matter, little fatty, just wait for your death. Jia Mingjin quickly left. Xia Huyo and Su Yu did not pay much attention to it. Su Yu could not be bothered to care about this and asked, "How much did you earn?" "Su Yu, you're too cruel." Xia Huyo said helplessly, "If you had said earlier that you could finish the battle in 1 minute, then you would have earned more. Didn't you say that you could finish it in 3 minutes? Be more conservative. You can't be too arrogant." Su Yu smiled honestly. One had to keep a low profile. Of course, he could not be too full of himself. If he said that he could finish the battle in 3 minutes, then it was normal for him to finish it in 30 seconds. Xia Hu was speechless. He whispered, "Are you selling that heaven-rank martial skill of yours?" Su Yu glanced at him and did not say anything. "Don't worry, it won't be leaked." The Xia family had a hobby of collecting all kinds of martial skills. If it was handed over to the Xia family would seal it and only a few people would be allowed to read it. As long as it was not leaked, even if the martial skills inheritor was still alive, they would not care. Su Yu couldn't be bothered with him. What the F***ck was he thinking? Cut the crap. How much did you earn? Not much. The odds of you winning are too high. In the end, I earned around 25,000 points. Xia Huyo grinned. But I still have to take out some money to pay for this 25,000 points. There are still many people who haven't paid yet. They gave me an IOU. Then, he said happily, "But it won't be short of you. How about 7,000 merit points?" 7,000 merit points. It was not a small amount. Or rather, it was a lot. It was a no-cost deal. Xia Huyo was going back on his word. Su Yu had nothing to say. At this moment, he could only say that this fatty was not a big profiteer. Su Yu smiled and said, "Okay. I don't want these merit points. Buy me some 5 elements race blood essence. And the mountain-breaking bull blood essence. You want more?" Xia Huyo looked at him in surprise. "You bought so much, and you still want more? It's mainly the essence blood of the 5 elements race." Su Yu said, "It's not me who wants it, it's my teacher who needs it." Su Yu said seriously, "Teacher has been researching a big project recently, and he urgently needs these things." The essence blood of the 5 elements race was said to be helpful to the cultivation of the art of literature. Teacher is researching whether it can unlock some characteristics so that the strong can directly use the essence blood to improve their willpower. This is very important. Xia Huyo said in surprise, "Assistant teacher Bai has already researched willpower. Didn't he only research the blood essence innate skill previously? It can be considered as a related project." Su Yu smiled and said, "So other than the mountain ox blood essence that I'm using, the rest are used by my teacher." Xia Huyo looked at him sympathetically. "You're so pitiful. You still have to support your teacher. This Bai Feng. He's really shameless. He has the nerve to keep squeezing his own student." Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. With so much blood essence, how could Su Yu use it all up? However, Bai Feng was considered not bad. The results of the research were probably used on Su Yu. Otherwise, Su Yu wouldn't be so strong. Wentan Research Center. Xia Huyo muttered in his heart. This place, when it really opens up one day, there would be some shocking research results. However, he still felt that it wasn't very reliable. The one who wasn't reliable wasn't Su Yu, but Bai Feng. Could he research it out? He was living off his disciple. He was shameless. If he couldn't research it out, then it would be a waste of resources. Wentan Research Center. Third underground level. Bai Feng was abnormally happy. Just as he was about to continue, he suddenly shivered. I haven't slept for too long. Is my body weak? I'm flying in the air. Why do I feel a little weak? Also, something seemed to have exploded outside just now. In a flash, someone was fighting. Bai Feng scratched his chicken coop-like hair. He couldn't be bothered to care about it. Forget it, who cares? His own research was more important. Innate divine prose, innate divine prose. Bai Feng muttered to himself. He was a little crazy, and the joy in his eyes became more and more intense. The innate divine text might not be a single divine text, but a combination of multiple divine texts, ultimately forming the innate divine text. Which divine texts do I need? No, the divine texts that might be needed are different, and the innate divine texts that form are different. Do I need the divine texts of the human race? Divine battle techniques. Divine battle techniques with multiple divine texts, could it be that they are prepared for the innate divine texts? Bai Feng was a little crazy. Was it true? If it was true, then not only could the multi-divine text battle technique not be destroyed, but it had to truly become mainstream. Only in this way could the human race's innate divine text be developed. Not necessarily. The single divine text battle technique might also be able to be combined into the innate divine text, but it might require an even greater price. Bai Feng was getting more and more excited. Teacher, without you around, I'm almost able to create a result that will shake the heavens and the 10,000 worlds. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 576, The Future One. Chapter 576, Chapter 155, The Future One. The Library. When Suyu entered the library again, the guards at the entrance were like the ones who saw Jiang Mu, one of the top 100 students. Respect. Yes, respect. The gate at the entrance was opened quickly, and the guards retreated to the side, allowing Suyu to enter smoothly. This was the civilized academy. No, this was the myriad worlds. With strength, talent, and ability, he could go anywhere. Suyu did not mind being stopped for the first time. He nodded slightly at the guards, and his smile was gentle. In the academy, the guards only listened to orders. As a civilized teacher, there were times when he needed the help of the guards. For example, if he went out to do some small missions or other things, he could mobilize a portion of the guards. On the 10th floor. Suyu had just gone upstairs when he heard a somewhat tired voice, "Junior brother." Suyu shivered. It was so awkward. Wuxia walked out and looked at Suyu. Her eyes were still a little red. Suddenly, she went forward and hugged Suyu. She rubbed his head hard and sobbed, "Junior brother, you're so nice." Suyu was helpless. He broke free from his senior sister's clutches and said with a bitter smile, "Senior sister, is senior uncle here?" "Yes." Wuxia was a little unhappy that Suyu broke free from him. He gave a perfunctory reply before asking curiously, "Junior brother, how did you become so powerful?" Cough cough, teacher taught me well. Wuxia was dumbfounded. Senior uncle taught him well. Liar. Teacher uncle was clearly unreliable. Jia Jia, Suyu, come in. Chen Yong shouted from inside. As for Suyu's words, he just had to listen to them. There was no need to take them seriously. Even your teacher might not know your cultivation realm, yet your teacher taught you well. It's one thing for you to fool outsiders, but your senior is also a fool. In the main living room. Chen Yong looked at Suyu with a slightly complicated gaze. After a long while, he said, "Jia Jia, go make a pot of tea." Your junior brother is thirsty. All right. Wuxia ran out with a smile. After she left, Chen Yong returned to normal. He exhaled and said, "We are in big trouble." Suyu nodded. Chen Yong smiled and said, "From the looks of it, you seem to have understood something. Tell me about it." "Lord Wan is too heavy-handed." Suyu said calmly, "Even if Elder Jing really wants to attack me, he hasn't done so yet. Just because a Shanghai realm elder had this motive, Lord Wan injured him and almost killed him. If Lord Wan was like that, the Civilization Academy would have been destroyed decades ago." "That's right." Chen Yong nodded. "What else?" "I think there might be some reasons that we don't know about." Suyu made a judgment. "It might be to intimidate the single divine text department, or to kill a chicken as an example to the monkeys, or perhaps they have offended Mansion Master Wan in some way, or even touched some intolerable bottom line." Chen Yong nodded again and smiled. "That might be the case. Actually, there's still another possibility, to support the multi-divine text department." "Why?" Suyu was puzzled. It had been decades, but he had never supported us. Now, he was supporting us. The reason? Chen Yong pondered for a moment and said, "There might be some reasons. Previously, the principal looked for me once, and it has something to do with you. Of course, I can't be bothered with him. I'll wait for him to look for you first." Chen Yong was not too willing to participate in this. This depended on Suyu's own wishes. He would not give any subjective tendencies. After saying this, Chen Yong smiled and said, "It's not only related to you. The principal also wants us to make the divine literature battle technique wall semi-public and use it as a secret realm." Suyu couldn't help but curse in a low voice. "What are you thinking about? Then why don't you let the other departments take out some of their precious resources and share them? We already don't have any hidden treasures, yet you want to share this with others?" Chen Yong pressed his hands together and smiled. "I didn't agree. I can't make the decision to let him look for your grandmaster." Chen Yong did not mention these things. He reminded, "Anyway, be careful. You seriously injured Huang Qifeng, so this is nothing." Zheng Yuming, on the other hand, was seriously injured because of this. He was punished to go to the heavenly battlefield and kill a mountain and sea before he could return. He might not be able to return for the rest of his life. For a mountain and sea to not be able to return for the rest of his life was a very serious matter. However, Suyu did not think much of it. He was even a little puzzled as he said, "So what if he can't return from the heavenly battlefield? Don't tell me that the reason why we cultivate to be so powerful is to enter closed-door cultivation in the academy? Shouldn't the majority of the strong go out to battle while the weak stay behind to preach in the academy?" There were so many mountains and seas in the academy. This was what Suyu found strange. Why would there be so many strong people in the human realm? On the heavenly battlefield, Qianjun and Wancher were fighting, but the strong people of the human race didn't participate. This made Suyu very confused. Chen Yong sighed, "There are many reasons. First, if all the strong people go to the heavenly battlefield, the war will escalate. From the original sky, it will be dominated by mountains and seas. Second, the heavenly battlefield is only the first line of defense. We have to be careful that it will be wiped out in one go and completely break the inheritance. Third, the interior of the human realm isn't too peaceful. There have to be some experts left to guard it just in case." As he spoke, he added, "Actually, there is another reason. The number of people from the civilized academy going to the battlefield is less than that of the war academy. This is because we have more or less some more important research that needs to be done." Chen Yong explained, "Some of the projects are still quite critical and require a strong person to analyze and host them. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories." Chapter 577, The Future, Monthly Ticket for Subscription, 2. Chapter 577, Chapter 155, The Future, Monthly Ticket for Subscription, 2. Project? Suyu thought of Baifeng and asked doubtfully, what project does the Single God Language Department have? There are so many experts here, and I haven't heard of any great project in progress. There is. Chen Yong smiled and said, don't really underestimate the Single God Language Department. Since they can be so powerful, they must have something extraordinary. Didn't you fight with Zheng Hong before? What did you feel? Suyu thought for a moment and said hesitantly, the Wind and Fire Mountain Forest. System? Yes. Chen Yong nodded and said, the Single Divine Language Department is actually completely different from the past. Back then, the divine languages that they mainly cultivated were all not in a system. Some people cultivated single divine languages, but now, there are actually some changes. For example, the divine languages that cultivated into a system, this is the evolution of the Single Divine Language Department. Chen Yong continued, in fact, there are some differences within the Single Divine Text system. Whether to cultivate a single divine text, a few different divine texts, or a single system of divine texts. These are all controversial. Suyu nodded. So that was the case. Chen Yong continued, it's not just that. They have actually researched quite a few things. For example, Governor Zhou Mingren has been researching the perpetuation of the text of will all these years. There are still some important things. You also know that sometimes, even if you don't use it, it will dissipate automatically over time. Suyu hurriedly nodded and said regretfully, it's like this. When I was in Nanyuan, Teacher Lu gave me a copy of Thunder Essence Blade. However, only the first 4 blades have some will power, and the later ones have all dissipated. Chen Yong was taken aback. The earlier ones were there, but the later ones overflowed? Are you kidding me? The stronger the later one was, the more willpower would be attached to it. Even if it was going to dissipate, the earlier ones would disperse first. How could the later ones disperse first? After making some calculations in his heart, he could roughly guess what was going on. Chen Yong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It wasn't good for him to expose his martial uncle, so he was slightly embarrassed. He said, yes, it's easy for it to overflow. That's why the divine will of the human race isn't preserved for a long time, and it often causes some wastage. Head Prefect Zhou Mingren has studied this aspect, and I heard that he's about to produce some results. Once he succeeds, the human race's divine will be able to last for many years, just like the 10,000 races. Then, some of the human experts will be able to keep more divine will for future generations. Suyu nodded. This was somewhat useful. Zheng Hong's teacher, elder son, is actually also researching on a rather important project, Chen Yong said. The development of the basic text formula is the basic text formula that can be cultivated with tens of thousands of stones. This project also invests a lot of energy and resources. Suyu's heart moved, and he said, Uncle Master, the basic text formula, could it be that it hasn't been developed after so many years of searching? This, Chen Yong shook his head and said, I'm not sure. There are some things that I'm not too sure about. Logically speaking, after so many years, I've invested a lot of energy in material resources, so there might be some results. Maybe it's not perfect, or maybe it won't be passed on to the outside world. Who knows? As he said that, he explained, you also know that there are so many humans, so there are always some people who are not good people. Some good things have a more strict inheritance, just that they are afraid that if it is leaked out, the 10,000 races will know. Stop eating because of choking. Suyu did not agree, you can pay a certain price to spread it. Just like the art of war, it is completely blocked. How can you improve? This is not something that we can get involved in. Chen Yong smiled and said, let's not talk about others. Let's talk about our Wentan Research Center. If something big really happens, then before we spread it, we will definitely have to weigh the pros and cons. Thinking of this, Su Yu nodded. That was true. Double standards were not acceptable. Other people spent countless years and countless resources on things. If you asked for them, it was normal for them to not do it. They still had to look at the benefits. Seeing that he understood, Chen Yong smiled and said, "These things have nothing to do with us at the moment." As he said this, he paused and looked at Su Yu. Your main task now is to cultivate and enter the soaring sky realm as soon as possible. Another thing. He hesitated for a moment before saying, some things, if it's not convenient to say, don't worry. Civilized masters or cultivators all have their own secrets. But try to give your teacher some trust. He looked at Su Yu. Uncle Master doesn't want to snatch any of your results, but don't leave any future trouble for yourself. Especially the innate blood essence, regarding the soul-devouring worm's blood essence. I know that Bai Feng couldn't have produced such a result, or else he would have told me long ago. The blood essence of the innate talent only involves some changes in the physical body, so most civilized masters don't pay too much attention to it. However, when it comes to changes in willpower, it's completely different. In the past, it was difficult for fighters to injure the willpower of civilized masters. Unless the opponent is too strong, in a battle between civilized masters and fighters, almost all of them are stronger than civilized masters. But if a blood essence that could hurt willpower really appeared, the result would be very serious. Chen Yong said seriously, you have to know that civilized masters are used as the champions in the Grand Heavens battlefield. The value of a Shanhai Realm civilized master is definitely greater than that of a Shanhai Realm fighter. Mysterious, unpredictable, and full of tricks. This is a civilized master. But the foundation of all this is based on willpower. Su Yu, can you imagine how valuable blood essence is once it can hurt willpower? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 578, The Future, Monthly Ticket for Subscription, 3. Chapter 578, Chapter 155, The Future, Monthly Ticket for Subscription. He took a deep breath. He said solemnly, right now, the news is still circulating within a small area. I have already advised the head prefect to seal off the news. But this news will leak out sooner or later. The head prefect is saying that we can hand it over to the academy for a fee, and the academy to the Great Xia Academy and the Chiu Soa realm. We'll let them conduct an in-depth study. This way, we'll be able to share the risk so that we won't be the only ones being targeted. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Senior uncle, you mean, the problem with the soul-devouring worm's blood essence is very serious? He had known before that it would be much more troublesome than before. But now, it seemed to be even more troublesome. Yes. Chen Yong nodded and said, in the past, we only extracted the innate techniques of the fighter Dao. These are just some basic martial techniques. Actually, the impact isn't too great. But now, even the innate techniques of willpower can be extracted, so the problem is very serious. After saying that, he added, of course, in the academy, your safety can be guaranteed. But out of the academy, that would be troublesome. So, the best way is to hand over the skills for a fee and study them together. Su Yu frowned and said, then, could it be that all the valuable research results will be troublesome once they are produced? That depends on strength, power, and confidentiality. Chen Yong looked at Su Yu with a slight headache. Although this kid had done a lot of good things, he had also caused quite a bit of trouble. The soul-devouring bug's blood essence was not a small trouble. He was not afraid of anything. Bai Feng was actually very safe, but Su Yu, unless Su Yu stayed in the academy and did not go out, there would be risks if he went out. I'm just a student, I don't know the technology. Chen Yongyu said faintly, you said before that it was okay. Ever since you sold the information, everyone thought that you knew. Su Yu was extremely embarrassed. He had trapped himself in a cocoon. Yes, in the past, it was fine if you said that you did not know, but you could even get the information to sell the blood essence production. If you said that you did not know, would anyone believe it? Strictly speaking, it was Su Yu who had created a bigger crisis for himself. If he had not directed the previous incident, even if he had taken out the soul-devouring bug's blood essence, everyone would have thought that he, a mere student, knew something. The key was that there were no ifs. Su Yu was silent for a moment. He said, "Uncle Master, what you mean is that we have to come up with this technology now, and then it would be best to hand it over. However, if that happens, we will still know about this technology. Could it be that no one will target us? It's just to reduce the risk." Chen Yong smiled and said, "When more people know about it, we won't have uniqueness. In addition, once it's proven that this thing is difficult to manufacture, the cost is too high. Even if it's only the manufacturing method of the Thousand June realm, the value is not as high as we imagine." Su Yu raised his eyebrows and said, "So, as long as we come up with the extraction plan of the Thousand June realm, the subsequent plans will be very, very difficult, or there won't be any at all. That way, the risk will be reduced to the extreme?" "Yes." Su Yu understood. He said again, "Uncle Master, then does our research center have the confidence to come up with such a technology?" Chen Yong looked at him with a smile. This kid. Even now, if the two of them still didn't know what he was talking about, then they would really be stupid. "There's still hope. I'm not good at this aspect. Your teacher is very good at this. The blood essence innate skill, the key technology of extraction was developed by your teacher. Since you can extract other blood essence innate skills, then you have the confidence to extract the soul-devouring bug's innate skill. The prerequisite is to understand more about the soul-devouring bug's innate skill release method." Su Yu understood. He nodded. The soul-devouring bug's innate skill, soul-devouring skill, was actually almost the same as the soul-devouring art. It could be considered a overlapping martial skill. This was actually still a martial skill, but it might involve willpower. The soul-devouring art opened the body aperture, not the divine aperture. Therefore, this thing was not as serious as the outside world thought. It was not like the 5 elements technique. Actually, as long as I can provide the soul-devouring technique to adapt to the human cultivation method and let some people cultivate it, then the problem will not be a problem. Su Yu thought in his heart, but it was not that serious. Of course, it was best not to provide the cultivation method. It was the type with the best innate skill, the type that could only be unleashed after devouring the essence blood. This way, it would be even less conspicuous. After chatting with Chen Yong for a while, Wuxia returned with tea. Su Yu, who had been staring at Su Yu, felt very helpless. Chen Yong, too, felt very helpless. However, after thinking about it, he could not help but laugh. If these two could really succeed, it would be a good story. He was too lazy to care about this matter. Wu Jia and Su Yu might not even have such thoughts. At this moment, Wu Jia was just moved and curious. If it was really a relationship between a man and a woman, Chen Yong felt that the possibility was not high. His own disciple was also a careless person, so what did he know? After chatting for a few more sentences, he urged Su Yu to keep a low profile for the time being. Chen Yong did not say anything else. As for Zheng Yuming's matter, it had nothing to do with Su Yu at the moment. Before leaving, Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Martial uncle, then for your year-end assessment, do you have to make senior sister enter the top 100? Don't be too concerned about this." How could Su Yu not be concerned? He hurriedly said, "Uncle Master, we can't lose the library. Our divine literature battle technique wall is still here. That thing can be moved away." "Uncle Master." This time, Su Yu couldn't agree. He said righteously, "We have the divine literature department. For generations, we have been sketching divine literature battle techniques in the library. In our generation, we have lost our headquarters. How will we face those seniors in the future? Moreover, without the library, it will be troublesome for us to draw divine runes in the future, so we can't lose them. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 579, Future Corner, Monthly Subscription, 4. Chapter 579, Chapter 155 Future Corner, Monthly Subscription, 4. Chen Yong looked at him and laughed. How could this kid feel more nervous than me? Uncle, I'm sure you can enter the top 100. If you can't, I'll beat all of you out. Don't be ridiculous. Chen Yong hurriedly said, it's too dangerous, there are still top 10 students over there, but the existence of Zhang Tingkong. Jia Jia sighed. Chen Yong thought for a moment and said, if it really can't be done, at the end of December, at the end of the year, when the top 100 challenge is about to end on the 25th, let Jia Jia challenge you and replace your ranking so that you can maintain your position in the top 100. This way, you can avoid this test. But I'm 71 ST. Su Yu looked at Wu Jia. Wu Jia couldn't challenge him. Unless, his ranking dropped. And Wu Jia was a little depressed at this moment. A little unhappy, he muttered, Master, I still need junior brother to give up his position for me, how embarrassing. Moreover, I have to let junior brother's ranking drop below 90. Won't this delay junior brother? Chen Yong was also helpless. He said with a bitter smile, that's why I said, if you really lost it, then so be it. There's no need to delay your future for the sake of a position as a curator. Other than this method, unless Su Yu really defeated all the experts from the single divine script department. He would beat them until they didn't dare to enter the list again. He would beat those who fell off the list until they didn't dare to challenge Wu Jia again, but the difficulty was too great. Su Yu's eyes slightly moved as he said, Martial uncle, senior sister's willpower was damaged, and her divine script was damaged. If she can take the initiative to cultivate the basic script, will she be able to recover quickly? Chen Yong nodded, he smiled bitterly and said, that's right, but she hasn't soared into the sky yet, so I can't do anything about it. The 10,000 Literature Sutra was only suitable for cultivators in the sky realm to cultivate. If she had soared into the sky, such injuries would quickly recover. The divine aperture that the 10,000 Literature Sutra had opened could only be located when she soared into the sky. Once it was opened, it would be impossible to open it in the tens of thousands of tons. Your senior sister, let alone recovering, even if she were to cultivate now, once her willpower goes up against it, her sea of consciousness will immediately be in turmoil. Thus, she has no choice but to stop cultivating willpower. Right now, she is focusing on cultivating her physical body. To cultivate one's nature, one could only cultivate passively in a way that countered willpower. However, Wu Jia's willpower was injured. Once she cultivated, it would aggravate her injuries, causing her to have no choice but to silently recover and wait for the time to recover. 5 Elements Formula. Su Yu muttered in his heart. This thing could be used to cultivate one's willpower, and it wasn't a confrontational type. Instead, it was the type that would actively absorb willpower. If Wu Jia were to cultivate it, she would have a chance to quickly recover. However, Su Yu was hesitant. If it were to leak out. This wasn't a physical body cultivation technique, but a willpower cultivation technique, or a cultivation technique that could cultivate one's willpower that wasn't even available in the academy. If it were to spread out, it would be 100 times more serious than the soul-devouring worm's blood essence. It would be very troublesome. Su Yu was actually afraid of trouble. To put it bluntly, he wasn't that close to Wu Jia, and he was risking his life for Wu Jia. He was confident that he could defeat Huang Qifeng. But the cultivation technique was too easy to cause trouble. Let's wait and see. Su Yu had made up his mind. He would wait and see. He would cultivate first. This thing might not be suitable for everyone, and there wasn't a systematic cultivation technique yet. He only knew how to open the divine aperture. He might be able to cultivate, but Wuxia might not be able to cultivate. Su Yu left the library. Along the way, he met some students. Many students took the initiative to make way for him. This was the top 100 students. Su Yu, on the other hand, was still gentle and did not have any arrogance. He smiled back at those who made way, but he did not reject them. This was the benefit of the top 100 students. Once he rejected this kind of benefit, he would be going against the inherent class of the top 100 students. He could be a little humble, but there was no need to go against the existing interest class. If he was too low-key and humble, there was no need for that. It was too fake. He had the posture of a hypocrite. Although some people thought so. But Su Yu would not admit it. I'm not a hypocrite, I'm an honest person. Returning to the research center once again, Su Yu's heart was relieved. He felt a little at ease. He also felt a little sad. Many things had happened today, and some things were beyond his expectations. As he was thinking about the gains and losses today, Su Yu's vision suddenly blurred. In the next moment, it was as if he had entered another world. An attic. A figure. Su Yu, if you're free, why don't you come to the Heart Cultivation Pavilion and have a chat? Su Yu was stunned. I'm in the research center. This was the territory of the 8th layer of the mountain and sea realm, and someone had invaded it without a sound. Manor head? It's me. Wan Tiancheng's voice was ethereal as he smiled. Actually, we can chat here, but your willpower won't be able to hold out for long. Come and chat when you have time. Manor head, I. Before Su Yu could finish his sentence, his vision blurred again. He was awake. He was still on the sofa, but his willpower had been completely exhausted. Su Yu only felt extremely exhausted. His eyes were filled with endless shock. Wan Tiancheng had easily broken through Hong Tan's defenses and pulled his willpower to where he was and started a conversation with him. What was this? Too strong. Was it the difference between the 8th level of the mountain and sea realm and the peak of the mountain and sea realm? Su Yu was shocked, but he had other thoughts. I have to be careful. It was too terrifying. It felt like everything that happened in the academy was under the control of the principal. In that case, did he know that he had plotted against Shan Shenwen? Did he know that he had secretly established a small circle with Hu Zongqi? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 580, A Corner of the Future, 5. Chapter 580, Chapter 155, A Corner of the Future, 5. Did he know that he had purchased a large amount of resources from Xia Huyo? And most importantly, did he know about the atlas in his mind? At this moment, Su Yu suddenly felt that he had nowhere to hide. Everything was under the eyes of others. He swallowed his saliva. I'm in the research center. If he can drag me there, can the arcane realm block his willpower and vision? Not necessarily. Zhou Mingren was clearly cultivating in the arcane realm before, but he appeared very quickly when Jing Yuming was injured. This means that even if he's in the arcane realm, he might not be able to block their willpower detection. You want to talk to me? Talk about what? Su Yu had a headache. What the hell? Why did he feel that Wan Tiancheng was not a good person? This guy stayed at the academy all day long. Could it be that he was monitoring everyone? I have to become stronger. Su Yu cursed in his heart. He was still too weak now. So weak that if you were to stay in your own nest, others would be able to kill you at will. How terrifying. At the same time. Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Wan Tiancheng smiled and drank his tea. He muttered, the divine language. No, no. Will the divine language of the human race rise up in your hands? He saw it. He saw a corner of the future. Maybe it wasn't real, or maybe it was just one of a million possibilities, but he wanted to try. In his eyes, the sun and the moon revolved. His hair alternated between white and black, and strands of silver fell from his head. One Tianxing waved his hand at any time, and his hair shattered and disappeared. He said softly, 100 years of life, is it worth it? He shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. Sun, moon, eternity. Su Yu was only a corner of the big screen, not the main thing. He thought more. In the next moment, his eyes moved slightly, and he said indifferently, I just disabled his divine devil language. Maybe it's a chance. Old Zhou, you don't have to plead for him and me anymore. You still have to follow the rules. Outside the attic. Zhou Mingren said in a low voice, Yuming's main subject is the divine devil language. If I disabled his divine devil language and let him go to the heavenly battlefield, he will only die. One Tianxing said calmly, if we don't destroy him, we won't be able to establish ourselves. We have just entered the mountain and sea realm, so we still have a chance. If we really reach the peak of the mountain and sea realm and want to cripple him, we will have to pay a huge price. Alright, then I won't say anything. I want to ask for a divine writing for Yuming. One Tianxing frowned. It's not mine, and it's not yours. I know, but those people are already dead. Is it worth it to bury the divine writing with them forever? The 10,000 heavenly saints said calmly, I don't know. It was their own choice. There is cause and effect. If we didn't expel them back then, perhaps, the divine runes would have remained. Since they were expelled, there's nothing we can do about it. Zhou Mingren, you dug a grave for your disciple today. The next day, the branch of the divine runes rose again to seek revenge on you. Don't blame me for standing by and watching. I'll take responsibility. Zhou Mingren said in a low voice, I'm not willing to dig a grave either. But Yuming is crippled. I can't just sit by and watch him throw his life away. You're the prefect. You said to let him cut down a mountain and sea. I'll abide by your rules. But as his teacher, I have to beg for a way out for him. One Tianxing didn't say anything. Zhou Mingren also didn't say anything. He turned around and left. After he left, one Tianxing sighed softly and shook his head slightly. There is cause and effect. Today, you dig the grave. The next day, when those people return, they will naturally look for you to settle their scores. Lu Wenyan, Xia Yinqi. One Tianxing muttered. Was there any hope for them to return again? The grave has already been dug. Can you still endure it? One Tianxing muttered and closed his eyes to cultivate. He did not say anything else. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 580, A Corner of the Future, 5. Chapter 580, Chapter 155, A Corner of the Future, 5. Did he know that he had purchased a large amount of resources from Xia Huyo? And most importantly, did he know about the atlas in his mind? At this moment, Su Yu suddenly felt that he had nowhere to hide. Everything was under the eyes of others. He swallowed his saliva. I'm in the research center. If he can drag me there, can the arcane realm block his willpower and vision? Not necessarily. Zhou Mingren was clearly cultivating in the arcane realm before, but he appeared very quickly when Jing Yuming was injured. This means that even if he's in the arcane realm, he might not be able to block their willpower detection. You want to talk to me? Talk about what? Su Yu had a headache. What the hell? Why did he feel that Wan Tianxing was not a good person? This guy stayed at the academy all day long. Could it be that he was monitoring everyone? I have to become stronger. Su Yu cursed in his heart. He was still too weak now. So weak that if you were to stay in your own nest, others would be able to kill you at will. How terrifying. At the same time. Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Wan Tianxing smiled and drank his tea. He muttered, the divine language. No, no. Will the divine language of the human race rise up in your hands? He saw it. He saw a corner of the future. Maybe it wasn't real, or maybe it was just one of a million possibilities, but he wanted to try. In his eyes, the sun and the moon revolved. His hair alternated between white and black, and strands of silver fell from his head. Wan Tianxing waved his hand at any time, and his hair shattered and disappeared. He said softly, 100 years of life, is it worth it? He shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. Sun, moon, eternity. Su Yu was only a corner of the big screen, not the main thing. He thought more. In the next moment, his eyes moved slightly, and he said indifferently, I just disabled his divine devil language. Maybe it's a chance. Old Zhou, you don't have to plead for him and me anymore. You still have to follow the rules. Outside the attic. Zhou Mingren said in a low voice, Yuming's main subject is the divine devil language. If I disabled his divine devil language and let him go to the heavenly battlefield, he will only die. Wan Tianxing said calmly, if we don't destroy him, we won't be able to establish ourselves. We have just entered the mountain and sea realm, so we still have a chance. If we really reach the peak of the mountain and sea realm and want to cripple him, we will have to pay a huge price. Alright, then I won't say anything. I want to ask for a divine writing for Yuming. Wan Tianxing frowned. It's not mine, and it's not yours. I know, but those people are already dead. Is it worth it to bury the divine writing with them forever? The 10,000 heavenly saints said calmly, I don't know. It was their own choice. There is cause and effect. If we didn't expel them back then, perhaps, the divine runes would have remained. Since they were expelled, there's nothing we can do about it. Zhou Mingren, you dug a grave for your disciple today. The next day, the branch of the divine runes rose again to seek revenge on you. Don't blame me for standing by and watching. I'll take responsibility. Zhou Mingren said in a low voice, I'm not willing to dig a grave either. But Yuming is crippled. I can't just sit by and watch him throw his life away. You're the prefect. You said to let him cut down a mountain and sea. I'll abide by your rules. But as his teacher, I have to beg for a way out for him. Wan Tianxing didn't say anything. Zhou Mingren also didn't say anything. He turned around and left. After he left, Wan Tianxing sighed softly and shook his head slightly. There is cause and effect. Today, you dig the grave. The next day, when those people return, they will naturally look for you to settle their scores. Lu Wenyan, Xia Yinqi. Wan Tianxing muttered. Was there any hope for them to return again? The grave has already been dug. Can you still endure it? Wan Tianxing muttered and closed his eyes to cultivate. He did not say anything else. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 581, Master is really amazing. Subscription 1. Chapter 581, Chapter 156, Master is really amazing. Subscription 1. Research Center. Su Yu silently recovered his willpower. After a long time, his willpower was restored. At this moment, it was already the night of the 3rd. According to the time, he should be feeding the great demons today, but Su Yu was not in the mood. It had only been 3 days, and he could not starve to death. What was the rush? He got up and pressed a button on the wall. After a while, footsteps could be heard from the basement. Bai Feng had a stubble and dark circles under his eyes. His hair was like a chicken coop as he walked out. He looked at Su Yu with a dazed expression. What's the matter? Su Yu had a headache. Why had his teacher become like this now? He didn't look dashing at all. He didn't fit the scholarly image in his heart. Teacher, I want to do research. What? Bai Feng stared at him blankly. Do research? That's right. But. Bai Feng scratched his head and said, before we soar into the sky, your priority is to cultivate. What research do you want to do? We'll talk about it when we soar into the sky. Doing research would waste a lot of time. If they didn't soar into the sky, it would waste too much time. This wasn't good. Even for him, it was only after he soared into the sky that he focused his attention on this. Su Yu thought for a moment, he said, it's like this, teacher. Didn't our research center develop a drop of soul-devouring worm's innate blood essence? It seems that someone is eyeing us now, so it's best if we can develop the technology. Bai Feng was confused. What the hell? What the hell are you talking about? Although we understand what you're saying, why can't we understand what you're saying? What do you mean that our research center has developed a drop of soul-devouring worm's innate blood essence? He looked at Su Yu in a daze. Su Yu said helplessly, Teacher, didn't you say that you wanted to cover for me? You said that I used my innate skill and that you developed it. Didn't I recently use the soul-devouring worm's innate skill? Then, you have to cover for me. Bai Feng continued to be in a daze. Damn it, I haven't come out for a few days, and the moment I came out, you threw such a big pot at me. Are you still human? Bai Feng finally woke up a little and rubbed his head, he said with a slight headache, the matter of the blood character divine prose. You swallowed the soul-devouring worm's blood essence, so you used the soul-devouring technique. You were discovered by others and thought that it involved a martial skill related to willpower, so they wanted to find trouble with you. More or less. Su Yu nodded. Teacher was still very smart. Look at this messy sentence of his, you even understood it. How smart. Teacher, you have to solve the problem. Bai Feng was somewhat speechless, he said unhappily, soul-devouring is not a willpower innate technique. It's just that in addition to willpower, there is a layer of special yuan qi that is burned and corroded. It can be considered a yuan qi technique. F*ck, can't these people differentiate between yuan qi skills and willpower skills? Su Yu was truly somewhat surprised. He looked at Bai Feng in surprise. He had used soul-devouring before, so he knew that soul-devouring was indeed not a willpower martial skill but a yuan qi martial skill. Bai Feng actually knew about it too. One had to know that even Qin Yong felt that this was a willpower innate skill. Teacher, how did you know? Nonsense. Bai Feng ridiculed, I've experimented with so much blood essence over the years. The soul-devouring worm is so special, how can I not experiment? Your grandmaster also caught the soul-devouring worm. I've personally tried to be sprayed by the soul-devouring liquid to corrode willpower, but it really is a yuan qi mutation. Bai Feng explained, if such an innate skill like soul-devouring can be developed and used by warriors, it would be a huge problem for civilized masters. It can mutate one's yuan qi and greatly reduce the difficulty of killing civilized masters. Su Yu nodded. That's right. He was really a little surprised. His teacher knew quite a lot. Bai Feng sat down and glanced at him. He pointed at the teapot in front of him without any discerning eyes. Su Yu could not help but laugh and hurriedly went over to boil water. Bai Feng did not mind and yawned, he continued, I once studied soul-devouring for a few months. At that time, my thought was whether this innate skill could be converted into a human's martial skill, which openings would need to be opened, and whether it could mutate one's vitality and be targeted. Following that, Bai Feng shook his head. Later on, I realized that it was too difficult. Soul-devouring bugs are just bugs. The difference between their structure and a human's body is too great. I cut open dozens of bugs, but I didn't find anything. As Suyu filled the water, he said faintly, "Teacher, I'm thinking of a problem. You might have overlooked it." "What?" "I'm human." "Nonsense." Bai Feng rolled his eyes. "I didn't know you were a human. What's so great about being a human?" The next moment, Bai Feng suddenly jumped up. His gaze changed drastically, and his mind was completely clear. He pointed at Suyu, dumbfounded. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He opened his mouth again, and after a long while, he shouted loudly, "You're a human." "That's right, Suyu is a human. Did I miss out on something extremely important?" The heck? I had always thought that I would wait for him to soar into the sky before studying his divine inscriptions, but why didn't I think that he is a human? The heck? He is a human. Seeing Bai Feng going crazy, Suyu felt helpless. I knew this would happen. Teacher's brain, sometimes. It's not that I despise him as a student, but it's really a little something. I'm a human, don't you know? It's been so long, and you only know. Soon, Bai Feng said in surprise, "You're a human, so when you use your innate skill, will you open some openings and directly use this innate skill?" As he said, he suddenly frowned and said, "That's not right, didn't you open it with divine runes? Could it be that you didn't rely on the power of blood essence to directly use divine runes to display your innate skill?" You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 582, Master is really amazing. Subscription request 2. Chapter 582, Chapter 156, Master is really amazing. Subscription request 2. This time, it was Suyu's turn to be speechless. That's right. He had always told his teacher that it was a talent skill that was converted using divine runes. Thinking of this, Suyu coughed lightly and said, "Teacher, divine runes are a transfer system. By transferring the power of blood essence and turning it into a special power, one can open temporary acupuncture points and unleash the talent skill. Therefore, those acupuncture points will still be opened." Bai Feng was shocked. He hurriedly said, "Are all innate skills like this?" "It should be." "It's over." Suyu was completely confused. Bai Feng turned pale with fright and said, "F***ck, if news of your matter gets out, you will definitely die. The 10,000 clans won't kill you. As long as you can use their innate skill, then all their cultivation techniques will be leaked. There will be no secrets left. You will definitely die. Even your grandmaster won't be able to hold on. Kid, are you serious? Weren't you only able to use the divine runes to transform? How did it suddenly become possible to open temporary apertures?" Bai Feng was really a little shocked. He had really thought that he could only use the divine runes to turn on the remaining innate techniques in the blood essence. This was because the blood essence of the research center was like this. It wasn't that he had opened his aperture and unleashed a martial skill. Instead, he had borrowed the power of his blood essence and the remaining blood essence innate skill imprint to duplicate the skill once. It wasn't that he had used it on himself. Suyu's skill was completely different from the research center's. The research center was a duplicate skill. If it was used all at once, it would be equivalent to a one-time use divine talisman. As for Suyu's skill, it was equivalent to obtaining a blueprint. He could slowly open his aperture and cultivate it before solidifying it into his own skill. The two were completely different. Bai Feng's face was filled with shock as he looked at Suyu. He originally thought that he would no longer be shocked by his student, but reality proved that he was thinking too much. Swallowing his saliva, Bai Feng's expression changed. Does anyone know that you can open your aperture? Su Yu shook his head. I don't think so. Because I have opened many apertures, they might not know what kind of aperture I have opened. Of course. You've opened so many apertures. Once someone has a good eye, it's easy for them to see that you've opened a temporary aperture. Su Yu scratched his head and said dryly, it should be very difficult, right? Teacher, I've opened 153 apertures. Even if I open a few more, they might not know, right? Bai Feng blinked. What did he mean? Aren't you only at the critical moment? What 153 acupuncture points? Su Yu continued, so even if I open some temporary acupuncture points in front of them, they shouldn't know that I opened them at the last minute unless they go deep into each of my acupuncture points to see if I really opened them, right? Don't rush. Bai Feng interrupted him and glared at him. What 153 acupuncture points? Explain it to me clearly. Su Yu felt a little guilty, but he said calmly, Teacher, don't you know? I remember that I told you the last time. You asked me how my progress was, and I said that it was great. Did I? Bai Feng recalled for a moment. Did I? Did I ask? So, he looked at Su Yu. Su Yu nodded. So I opened 153 acupuncture points. I'm at the critical moment, and I also opened some other acupuncture points to practice martial arts. 153. Bai Feng muttered and looked at Su Yu. This time, he really couldn't pretend anymore. He gulped and said, What's the date today? No, which year and which month? The night of October 3rd, year 350 of the Anping calendar. You've been in the school for 2 months. Yes. When you entered the school, you were at the 9th level of the origin opening realm? Yes. Bai Feng nodded and calmed down. Instead, he was no longer surprised. 2 months, no, it was just a little over 2 months, 63 days. A total of 153 apertures had been opened. Previously, Su Yu had already opened a few apertures, so he had opened 140 apertures in 2 months. Not even 3 in 1 day. Bai Feng muttered. Looking at Su Yu, he took a deep breath and regained his smile. Luckily, I didn't even open 3 apertures in 1 day. Su Yu was a little scared. Was his teacher crazy? What did he mean by not reaching 3 apertures in 1 day? Not reaching 3, was that normal? Bai Feng scratched his head as if he had gotten used to it. He waved his hand and said, Let's not talk about this. It's just more than 100 apertures. When we talk about your innate skill, when you erupted, no one noticed anything, right? I don't think so. Teacher, isn't the essence blood of our research center like this? No. After saying that, Bai Feng thought for a moment before taking out a bottle from his body. He threw it to Su Yu and said, This is the blood essence of the fire dolphin. It contains the clash of innate skills. Give it a try. Su Yu did not hesitate either. He poured out a drop of blood essence and swallowed it into his mouth. In the next moment, Su Yu roared in pain. A powerful force erupted from within his body. His body grew stronger and his clothes were torn. Su Yu suddenly had a realization and crashed into Bai Feng. Boom! With a loud bang, Bai Feng sent Su Yu flying with a palm strike. He smiled and said, How do you feel? Su Yu leaned against the wall and waited for the power of his blood essence to slowly deplete, he said with some exhaustion, So that's how it is. The blood essence provides me with power and I have a vague impression in my mind of what I should do. Then, I will follow this kind of memory and burst out with a collision talent skill. That's how it is. Su Yu smiled bitterly. So. It's different from mine. I thought that the research center's innate blood essence also burst out after opening temporary apertures. So that's how it is. No wonder. I told you that if you can open temporary apertures, Bai Feng should know many unique skills of the 10,000 races. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 583, Master is really amazing. Subscription Request 3. Chapter 583, Chapter 156 Master is really amazing. Subscription request. So that's not the case. Bai Feng looked at him with a helpless look. Now you know how troublesome it is for you to be able to open the temporary acupoint, right? Kid, don't use your blood essence. I'm afraid of death. If the experts of the 10,000 races find out about this, do you believe that dozens of invincible experts will come and kill you? F***ck. You can actually simulate the other party's innate skill. Who else can you kill if I don't kill you? He remembered that the first time Su Yu used his innate skill in front of him, it wasn't like this. Thinking of this, Bai Feng had a headache and said, I remember that the last time you used the iron-winged bird's innate skill, you didn't open the temporary acupuncture points, right? Su Yu shook his head. I did. I also opened some acupuncture points on my arm. But at that time, teacher, you were only concerned about the divine runes and didn't pay attention to it. Bai Feng thought about it and it seemed to be the case. At that time, he only remembered that he was shocked by the divine runes. He didn't think about it at all. Su Yu's method of opening it was actually different from the research center's. He only remembered to wait until he was in the air before cutting him. Bai Feng said helplessly, it seems to be the case. At that time, I only thought about waiting for you to be in the air to cut your pieces. Cough cough. Su Yu coughed dryly. This was too much. He could just think about it normally. Teacher, is it appropriate to just say it out loud? Bai Feng couldn't be bothered with him. The moment he came out, he felt as though his head was as big as an ox. At this moment, his mind was a mess. The problem of the soul-devouring worm had to be solved. Not only was Su Yu's life in danger, he had also opened many other acupoints. The eruption of his innate skill was completely different from what he had imagined. If word got out, from now on, there might be unrivaled races coming after them. And what else was there? Bai Feng rubbed his head. He did not have enough sleep. His brain had really turned into paste. He said in a daze, is there any other trouble? Come, say it in one breath. I can hold on. Su Yu looked at him carefully for a while and probed, I defeated Yang Sha. Who? Lu Hong's eldest disciple. Oh. He didn't take it seriously. I defeated Lu He again, Lu Hong's younger brother. Oh. No, you're in the top 100. Bai Feng reacted. His gaze became more and more strange. You're in the top 100. No, you're in danger, it's normal for you to be in the top 100. Thinking of this, he calmed down. Is there anything else? Yes, and then. I fought with Huang Qifeng, the fellow who severely injured senior sister. I crippled him. Oh, so what if he was crippled? As long as it doesn't violate the rules. And then his teacher, Elder Zheng, seemed to want to make a move on me. He was crushed by Manor Head Wan and sent to the celestial battlefield. He's not allowed to return without killing a mountain and sea. Bai Feng felt like he was going to explode. He could no longer remain calm. He looked at Su Yu and bared his teeth. After a long while, he said dejectedly, so powerful. I can vent my anger. No, I have to go to the heavens battlefield to look for your grandmaster. Otherwise, if you're finished, I think I'm finished too. He felt that he could not hold on any longer. Thinking of this, he looked at Su Yu again and said with some desolation, am I the last to know? I seem to feel a shocking aura erupting in the morning. Is that when it happened? Probably. Yes. So the entire academy probably knows about it, but only I know about it. Probably. Yes. I think, you can finish your apprenticeship. Bai Feng was really about to explode. Kid, I just flew up. Are you trying to force me to death? Suyu said dryly, Teacher, I'm not finished yet. You. Bai Feng was completely powerless. He collapsed on the sofa and said weakly, Continue. Just now, Manor Head Wan's willpower suddenly invaded. I was in the research center, and he suddenly pulled my willpower to where he was staying and even asked me to meet him. F***CK. Bai Feng suddenly cursed, Private Research Institute, don't you know the rules? That one guy is too much. Do you believe that I'll go to the Department of Strengthening Education and sue him? In name, the Department of Cultivation was still in charge of the Great Xia Academy. All the academies were under their control. After saying that, his eyes focused and he was completely shocked awake. That's not right. How did he break in? Your Grandmaster set up a defense. Even if it can't stop the peak of the mountain and sea realm, the other party can forget about breaking in silently. His gaze changed and he looked at Suyu. Are you sure that you were dragged away by him here? Yes. Damn it. Bai Feng kept swearing that night and could not help but curse again. This old dog thief, cough cough, this old mansion master, could it be the Sun and Moon realm? Sun and Moon realm? Suyu was surprised. 10,000 heavenly saints Sun and Moon realm? It's very likely. Bai Feng frowned and said, otherwise, there's no reason for him to avoid your Grandmaster's protection so easily, unless he's at the Sun and Moon realm. Forget about him. Bai Feng could not be bothered to think about it anymore. The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt. Is there anything else? Yes. Suyu whispered, Teacher, I even accidentally obtained a martial skill book. Oh. This time, Bai Feng was relieved. It was a small matter. Heaven tier. It's all right. Heaven tier intermediate level, the one with 132 openings. Bai Feng glanced at him, he said indifferently, it's just a martial skill book. So what if it's mid-tier heaven tier? What are you showing off for? The Quest Realm and the War God Hall don't lack these things. Who among those old ghosts doesn't have this? If your teacher and I really compare our dragon-slaying sword battle skills, it's not worse than heaven-tier martial skills. After all these storms and waves, why would they care about this? Although it was awesome. But, compared to the previous news, it was nothing. Suyu carefully glanced at him and said in a low voice, I found it in the Mountain and Sea invitation that you sold. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 584, Master is really amazing. Subscription 4. Chapter 584, Chapter 156, Master is really amazing. Subscription 4. Bang! Bai Feng kicked down the coffee table and picked up the item in a flurry. He gulped and said, Nonsense. I didn't sell it, it was stolen by someone. Then, he broke down a little and said, Really? You found it in the Mountain and Sea invitation? Yes, Swan and I said it, it was an accident. Your Grandmaster. When your Grandmaster returns, he will kill Swan and I. Brat, don't say it. If you say it, Swan and I is dead for sure. Even Bai Feng shuddered. Did Swan and I think that he would be struck to death? No, he would be skinned and pulled out of his tendons by Hong Tan bit by bit. With a devil-like smile, he would die in extreme pain. You have teased him for decades, so you might as well not say it. If you tell his grand disciple now, it would be too face-smacking. If teacher returns, he will definitely kill you. Suyu smiled bitterly as well. It seemed like it was the same. Swan and I, that idiot, how pitiful. He felt pity for him. Bai Feng couldn't be bothered to ask anymore. He said weakly, let's put aside the other matters first. Soul-devouring innate skill. I'll think of a way. Previously, I tried the soul-devouring worm's innate skill blood essence, but it was a little difficult at that time, so I gave up on it later. There are some new discoveries recently. I'll see if I can get soul-devouring innate skill blood essence out. Bai Feng was not stupid. He knew where the trouble was the moment he heard it. He said, get the skill out. If it doesn't work, hand it over to the academy or ask for help. Just pay. If it really doesn't work, just sell the blood essence. Let them know that this thing is actually not a willpower innate skill. Bai Feng cursed, a bunch of idiots. They can't differentiate between Yuan Qi techniques and willpower martial techniques. Selling a few drops of blood essence isn't a willpower innate skill, so they probably gave up on it. After all, this thing is only a special breed. Moreover, its strength is average. Unless there are tens of thousands of corrosive abilities, it won't have any effect on the flight. Su Yu was relieved. Sometimes, his teacher was quite reliable. Look, a huge problem had been solved. As expected, finding his teacher to take the blame was the right choice. Bai Feng ignored him and continued, regarding Zheng Yuming's matter, ignore him. He won't be able to stir up any waves in the heavenly battlefield. He crippled Huang Qifeng. This is a small problem, go and solve it yourself. As for heaven-rank martial techniques, most of their owners are still alive. If they're still alive, it won't be easy for them to be passed down. You can practice it yourself. Most of the martial techniques passed down by humans that contained the text of will were still alive. As the time of inheritance wasn't long, those that were too long ago would have to dissipate. That's the nature of the text of will, right? Yes. Su Yu nodded. Bai Feng also said with relief, that's right. That's how you can hide it from your grandmaster. I'm afraid that it was passed down from the sun, moon, or even the invincible realm. But we don't want it. You can learn it yourself. It's not considered owing a favor. If you meet it in the future, you can at most call it a cheap teacher. It's nothing great. The other party passed it down by themselves. It wasn't snatched by force. If you can get along with it, then don't bother about it. If you can't get along with it, then don't bother about it. Bai Feng didn't care too much about this. Although heaven-rank martial skills were very rare, divine literature masters, especially those who specialized in multiple divine literature, generally didn't care too much about these things. Strictly speaking, their divine runes battle skills were also heaven-rank battle skills in the divine runes. Su Yu kept nodding. Bai Feng finally said, in the future, you are not allowed to use your blood essence to explode, unless you encounter a life-and-death crisis. Those in the front can be pushed to me. It's okay, not many people know. Even if they see something, they can't be sure. Su Yu nodded again. Bai Feng thought for a moment and said, since you can explode your innate skill. His gaze suddenly changed, and he said in a deep voice, have you tried using the blood essence of the 5 elemental races? No, you can only explode your innate skill and not use your cultivation method. Forget it, this is meaningless. Su Yu's heart was about to explode. This teacher, when he thought about it, it was really terrifying. He knew what Bai Feng meant and wanted to ask if he could restore the text formula and convert it into a text formula that humans could cultivate. It was really terrifying. At least Su Yu had not thought about this question for a long time after receiving the picture book. Sure enough, his teacher still had a brain, but he was too otaku. Bai Feng did not know that his disciple was ridiculing him. After pondering for a moment, he said, also, don't sketch the divine language of other races in the near future. Sketch the divine language of the human race. Don't be in a hurry to confirm the main divine language. Looking at Su Yu, Bai Feng said in a deep voice, perhaps. What you said back then was right. Why can't the human race's divine language be strong? Since you want to do research, your current strength is still all right. Then, from tomorrow onwards, you can enter the research room on the third underground floor. First, get the soul-devouring worm's innate blood essence. Then, you can participate in my project. Bai Feng took a deep breath and said, "That's fine too. Since you have mastered so many innate skills, you can also be my experimental material. When you're free, give me a few innate skills and compare them with mine. It's a pity that your grand teacher isn't around. Why don't I give you more blood essence of gods and demons to try? You might be able to obtain some unexpected gains." "This won't do. I have to arrange for someone to look for him. Go to the mission office and hang up a mission to look for your grand teacher." Bai Feng felt a little regretful. "Hurry up and come back. Teacher, don't lose him. If he doesn't come back soon, with the strength of my senior and I, we won't be able to hold on any longer." Moreover, once the results of his innate divine text were released, he was worried that even if they were released, they wouldn't be able to be promoted. This matter was too important, and without his teacher's support, he wouldn't be able to hold on. Even if his teacher came back, he might not be able to hold on. He still had to find more experts of the divine text department to support him. And this kid in front of him was a freak. Divine text. Scram. If you continue to say that I sketched out the divine text for you, I'll strangle you to death. If the divine text with the word blood has so many uses, I'll knock myself to death in this research center. Bai Feng cursed in his heart. Bastard, you're lying to me. He couldn't be bothered with Su Yu anymore. Bai Feng seemed to have thought of something. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "Call my martial uncle later and ask him if he would mind being my lab rat for a while." Ah! Su Yu was stunned. "Teacher, what do you mean?" "Literally." Bai Feng said unhappily, "Don't you understand?" "No, teacher, call him yourself." "Nonsense, am I not afraid of death?" Bai Feng said gloomily, "My uncle master is so stingy. He doesn't like me and always thinks that I want to snatch his treasure. If I dare to say it, he would dare to let his old lover beat me to death." Su Yu was stunned. "You really dare to say it? Are you giving up on yourself?" With a little gossip in his heart, he whispered, "Teacher, Lu Laoshir's old lover, who is it?" "It's that." Bai Feng immediately shut his mouth. "Scram, you shouldn't be asking." "What are you asking for?" Bai Feng rolled his eyes, he said unhappily, "Go ask him yourself later, don't ask me. Don't forget, call him and ask him. I really have some thoughts. I want to try my uncle master, the best guinea pig. I'm starting to suspect that the thing left behind by the fifth-generation head prefect is exactly what I imagined it to be. Innate divine text. The divine text left behind by the fifth-generation head prefect, is it really? I really doubt it. I really want to cut open my uncle master to take a look. At the same time, I want to cut off Su Yu as well." As for Su Yu, he seemed to have thought of something as well. In a low voice, he said, "Teacher Huang said that the reason why the human civilization masters are unable to advance to the eternal realm is due to something lacking. It has something to do with the sea of consciousness." "Teacher." Bai Feng was stunned. Clearly, he didn't know about it. He had never asked about it before, and no one would specifically mention it to him. Could it be that he had taken the initiative to tell him that the human civilization masters had no other choice after reaching the peak of Sun Moon realm? He was too bored. If he didn't ask, who would tell him? He wasn't at the peak of the Sun Moon realm. What was the use of telling him? Wouldn't it be the same if he walked on the path of invincible physical body? Bai Feng swallowed his saliva crazily. Just like Su Yu, at this moment, he thought of the innate divine prose. Looking at his disciple, Bai Feng's voice trembled as he said, "Really? Who said that?" "That teacher Huang who is guarding the secret realm." Bai Feng took a deep breath. In the next moment, he stood up and said in a deep voice, "We are not allowed to reveal that we are researching the innate divine text. We are researching the innate blood essence. Do you understand? It's the blood essence. It has nothing to do with the divine text, and it has nothing to do with the sea of will." Su Yu hurriedly nodded. "I understand." At this moment, he suddenly felt that Bai Feng was amazing. He was so high and mighty. To think that he was actually researching a project that could allow him to achieve an invincible breakthrough. He was amazing. Bai Feng saw his gaze, and for a moment, he felt a little smug. "Your teacher, I, am not powerful. Not powerful at all." In the next moment, Su Yu whispered, "Teacher, your strength has just soared into the sky, and you've researched it. Can you use it on yourself?" Silence, deathly stillness, pierced his heart. What did he mean by just soaring into the sky? Could it be that you're Ling Yun? Bai Feng's heart was tired and didn't want to speak. There was some melancholy in his heart. "Yes, I just soared. *CK, I have to soar as soon as possible." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 585, Innate Divine Text 1. Chapter 585, Chapter 157, Innate Divine Text 1. Research Center. The master and disciple chatted for a while before Bai Feng suddenly thought of something and said angrily, "Where's the tea?" Su Yu could not help but laugh. He was still thinking about this. He went over and poured him a cup of tea. Only then was Bai Feng satisfied, and his mood was much better. As he drank the tea, he was thinking about something. After a while, Bai Feng said thoughtfully, "When you used the soul-devouring skill, do you still remember which acupuncture points you opened?" "Yes. Soul-devouring worm, soul-devouring skill. Yuan Qi mutation." Bai Feng muttered, "I don't know if it's the innate skill that causes Yuan Qi mutation, or the soul-devouring worm's basic Yuan secret that causes Yuan Qi mutation. Unfortunately, you don't know Yuan secret." Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, I think the soul-devouring worm's Yuan secret and the innate skill's apertures should be similar. Actually, from the innate skill, I think it's usually possible to derive the Yuan secret. After all, the apertures that the innate skill opens are all the apertures of the basic Yuan secret. These two were usually complementary. For example, the War God formula and the Heaven-cleaving kill were complementary. The War God formula had opened 108 openings, and the Heaven-cleaving kill had opened 96 openings. They were all openings that the War God formula had opened before. There was only a difference of 12 openings. That makes sense. Bai Feng nodded and his eyes flickered as he said, "If the soul-devouring bug's Yuan formula can cause Yuan Qi to mutate and add the effects of burning and eroding willpower, then it would be a huge change for all warriors. If warriors want to hurt civilized masters, under normal circumstances, they would have to get close and kill their bodies. However, if they can burn civilized masters' willpower from afar, the result would be different." Bai Feng's heart stirred slightly as he said, "Perhaps, we can use this to hook up with a few experts of the warrior path. Protect us." Su Yu looked at his teacher and his expression changed slightly. Bai Feng said indifferently, "Why are you looking at me? Our strength isn't enough. How normal would it be to find someone to back us up? However, the soul-devouring skill is only at the 1,000 June realm now. What you are testing is only the 1,000 June realm, right?" "Yes. It's fine. The 1,000 June realm is enough. The main thing to look at is the opening method of an aperture." Bai Feng continued drinking his tea and fell into deep thought. A cultivation technique that could cause Yuan Qi to mutate and harm one's willpower. Was there such a cultivation technique? The world was so big that there were all sorts of wonders. Not to mention the myriad races, the human race might also have such a cultivation technique. However, if they had such a cultivation technique, it would be a secret technique. At the very least, there was no such cultivation technique that was publicly disseminated. On the great Xia Manor's side, other than the Xia family, the other warrior Dao experts did not have such a cultivation technique in Bai Feng's opinion. Knocking on the table, Bai Feng suddenly smiled and said, "Tell me, if we really want to trade with the experts of the path of fighters, will we be called traders by the civilized masters?" Su Yu thought for a moment, he smiled and said, "No, that's not us traders, it's the people who are scolding us. We are handing over the cultivation technique so that the fighters can kill the enemies on the battlefield and kill the civilized masters of all races. Why would our civilized masters be afraid of this? Isn't it good to strengthen the strength of the human race? If they really have such thoughts, then they are traitors and want to cause internal strife. That's just what they say." Bai Feng sneered, "Civilized masters are very proud. All civilized masters feel that the fighters are inferior to civilized masters. When you give the fighters the cultivation technique that can injure civilized masters, they will feel that their position will be challenged. There were fewer civilized masters than warriors, and undefeatable ones also had their physical bodies upgraded. However, civilized masters were indeed a group of arrogant fellows. Even if their overall strength was inferior to the other party, they still felt that civilized masters were superior to warriors. In fact, it was not only the human race, but all the worlds in the universe seemed to be the same. Su Yu shook his head and said, "Then we can't have developed a cultivation technique and ended up sealing it, right? Just so that the position of a civilized master would not be challenged?" "Of course not. The prerequisite is strength and confidence." Bai Feng smiled and said, "If you are invincible, even if you preach in the myriad realms, no one would dare to say no." Bai Feng exhaled and said, "We will act according to the circumstances. Kid, since you want to do research, this is your first topic. Derive the soul-devouring technique from the soul-devouring technique." Su Yu muttered in his heart. "I don't need to derive, I can do it myself. Why would I need to derive it?" Of course, he couldn't say that. Innate techniques were still alright. After all, someone was researching it. Yet, you could even learn the other party's basic origin technique automatically. It was too terrifying. Bai Feng was probably going to explode. Even though he knew innate techniques, it was already enough to make him explode. Bai Feng stood up. Seeing that Su Yu was still in a daze, he said unhappily, "Let's go. Didn't you say that you want to do research?" "That, teacher, now." "Of course." Bai Feng frowned and said, "Could it be that we're still waiting for tomorrow?" That was strange. What was this kid thinking? "Kid, why are you not willing to work hard at all? Back then, when your grandmaster told me to enter the research lab, I couldn't wait to do so. I couldn't wait to enter immediately, but you kept pushing me away." Su Yu's heart was tired. "Why did I keep pushing you away? I just didn't expect you to be in such a hurry." He didn't say anything else and silently followed Bai Feng to the third underground floor. The main research room. This was the first time Su Yu had come here. An incomparably thick and heavy door stood there. Bai Feng pointed at the door and said, "This thing was forged from the main material used to forge Earth-grade weapons." Su Yu did not wait for him to finish and his expression changed slightly. Flame Demon Steel. The specialty of the Flame Demon world, the main material used to forge weapons. Does the laboratory use this as the door? Yes, it's good that you know it. If you take it down, it can be used as an Earth-grade weapon. Bai Feng said proudly, "It's not an ordinary Earth-grade weapon. Just this big piece of material alone can sell for a high-grade Earth-grade weapon price." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 586, Innate Divine Text 2. Chapter 586, Chapter 157, Innate Divine Text 2. Earth Rank High Level. It was enough for the peak of the mountain and sea realm, more than enough. The research center was really rich. After making a casual judgment, Suyu felt that selling it for 5,000 merit points was not difficult. Of course, this was used to forge military weapons. If it was used to forge civil weapons, then it would be frighteningly expensive. Bai Feng did not say anything else. A small sword appeared in front of him and turned into a key, opening the door. Go in. Suyu waited for the door to open and hurriedly walked in. When he entered the laboratory, he was somewhat shocked. Countless machines were neatly distributed in a huge hall. Around the hall, there were many laboratories that stretched out. This place was much bigger than the sub-laboratory above, and there were many more machines. Suddenly, Suyu's eyes flickered. He looked at a transparent room. What was that? In that room, books were floating in the air, and Suyu looked familiar. Seeing Suyu staring in that direction, Bai Feng smiled and said, "Familiar, right? It's the Book of Knowledge. It contains the inheritance of the Shanghai realm." Teacher. Suyu said in surprise, "So many." Bai Feng nodded, "This is what your grandmaster obtained from killing enemies on the battlefield. Your grandmaster has been to the heavens battlefield many times over the years. He killed 6 Shanghai realm experts, 3 of whom were civilized masters, and he took 16 divine runes. Of which, 3 main divine runes and 13 secondary divine runes were stored away." Suyu was shocked. He killed 6 Shanghai realm experts. One had to know that mountains and seas were not cabbages. Under normal circumstances, every time mountains and seas met, it would be a life-and-death battle unless the difference in strength was too great. For example, Wan Tiansheng and Zheng Yuming. Grandmaster dared to go to the heavenly battlefield to hunt down the mountains and seas. How strong! Bai Feng said again, "This thing cannot be called Wnmingzi. When Mingzi refers to the passing down of one's divine writings after the fall of a human expert. One hopes that one day, later generations can obtain some inheritance from it. This is called Wenmingzi." Suyu's interest was piqued, and he asked curiously, "Teacher, can the divine writings in Wenmingzi still be passed down?" "No." Bai Feng shook his head. After the fall of the mountain and sea realm, the divine writing will collapse. Unless some special methods are used, it can barely be preserved. If it is preserved in the civilized will, it will actually collapse. After a long time, it will completely disappear. In about 100 years, the civilized will be gone. He sighed. This meant that the last mark of the fallen mountain and sea had disappeared from this world. As he spoke, he continued, "However, there are also some special circumstances. For example, some mountain and sea peaks have their main divine text stabilized. At the last moment, using one's life as the price, one can condense the main divine text into a semi-eternal state. This type of divine text can be passed down, similar to the eternal divine text." Suyu nodded. He continued, "Teacher, doesn't our academy have some eternal divine texts? These divine texts can actually be used. Secret realms were formed from divine runes one after another. There were actually quite a few secret realms in the academy. After so many years, the academy had produced some sun and moon realm cultivators." "Used?" Bai Feng looked at him and said, "You mean, using the divine runes for our own use?" Suyu nodded. "Yes, what I mean is, if the divine runes are eternal, can't we just collect and use them ourselves?" He was thinking about the book in his mind. Therefore, he was a little curious. Could he use the eternal divine text for himself? Bai Feng shook his head and said, "No, let me explain it simply. It's just a matter of compatibility. For example, if you outline the blood-word divine text, but I can't outline it, even if you die and give this divine text to me to use, I might not be able to use it. Su Yu's expression changed. Teacher, your words are too painful. What do you mean I'll die for you to use? Such a good example. Is there anyone who can match it? Su Yu did not say anything more and asked another question. Yes. Bai Feng nodded and thought for a moment. He said, my martial uncle can. There are also some people who can. The compatibility may not be 100%, but to be able to include the divine text, this kind of situation is rare. It usually only happens to geniuses. Because this genius had the possibility of sketching out this divine text in the first place. But, Bai Feng reminded, don't think about it. Think about it yourself. With your temperament, how much of a burden would it be on your sea of consciousness to include an eternal divine text? It's even possible to burst your sea of consciousness. Unless you're really gifted and your sea of consciousness is incomparably powerful, and that eternal divine text is extremely compatible with you, then there's a little hope. After thinking for a moment, he then added, moreover, the single divine text is even more difficult than the multiple divine texts. The multiple divine texts, because there are so many divine texts, form a battle technique framework, so it's barely possible to use the battle technique framework to suppress the divine texts, but the single divine text is extremely difficult. Su Yu nodded. But in his heart, he was thinking about something else. His teacher said that his uncle master could. Recalling Bai Feng's previous words, Su Yu suddenly said, Teacher, does Teacher Lu have such a divine text inheritance? Yes. Bai Feng couldn't be bothered to hide it and said, the fifth-generation head of the mansion once left behind a divine text which was later taken away by Uncle Master. It might have been absorbed into Uncle Master's sea of consciousness. As for the specifics, I'm not too sure. But your Teacher Lu was once a rare monstrous genius in the Great Xia Civilization Academy, but he was later crippled. It might be related to this divine text. As for me, I have some small speculations. This might not just be a divine text, but perhaps it's also an innate divine text. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 587, Innate Divine Prose 3. Chapter 587, Chapter 157, Innate Divine Prose. Su Yu blinked his eyes. Innate Divine Prose? No way. We haven't figured it out yet. Does this mean that the fifth-generation prefect had already condensed an innate divine prose? Doesn't that mean that he really has the hope of becoming invincible in the Tao, or even invincible as a civilized master? Bai Feng ignored him and continued walking forward, pointing at a large machine. He said, this is a centrifuge, used to separate blood essence. Once the blood essence solidifies and turns into blood essence, it's almost impossible to separate it. Only this centrifuge can separate the blood essence. This is a willpower testing machine. Su Yu was interested in the machine that Bai Feng had introduced. Willpower testing machine. It was like a small house. He did not know how to test it. Bai Feng smiled and walked into the small house. In the small house, a burst of willpower suddenly erupted. On the machine connected to the outside of the house, a line of text appeared. Willpower level, top tier tier 2. God's aperture activated, 30 to 40. Number of divine runes, 15 to 25. Overall rating, soaring 9 layers. What was that? Su Yu looked at Bai Feng, who walked out with some surprise. Teacher, this machine can also measure the number of divine runes and God's apertures. It's just a general test. Bai Feng smiled and said, the main purpose is to test the captured guys, in case they hide their strength. You have to know that some races are very special. Even mountains and seas might not be able to observe anything, including some hidden divine runes. Su Yu nodded and said eagerly, Teacher, can I give it a try? You can. You're so weak. Once you enter, the strength test will be more accurate. Later, you just need to burst out your willpower. If you want to be more accurate, then burst out the divine runes. The weaker you are, the more accurate this thing will be. Su Yu was a little excited. It seemed to be quite fun. He immediately ran into the small room. Willpower burst. Around the small room, there seemed to be countless divine talismans that were rapidly absorbing his willpower. Then, Su Yu's divine runes burst forth. And at this moment, outside, Bai Feng was also looking at the data. When he saw it, he was a little stunned. Willpower level, top tier 1. Full capacity, 68%. Number of divine runes, 5, divine runes level, 2 tier 2. Overall rating, peak of recuperation. Turning his head to look at Su Yu, Bai Feng blinked and shouted, "Come out." Su Yu hurriedly walked out. "Teacher, what's wrong? When did you draw the 5th divine rune? Why didn't I know?" Su Yu scratched his head. "Didn't I say it? I didn't say it. The Gin divine rune was too embarrassing. It didn't match my temperament. Couldn't I have forgotten to say it? That. I sketched it a few days ago." Bai Feng rolled his eyes, then, he said in surprise, "Your willpower level is actually at the peak of tier 1. That's strange. Logically speaking, your full level is less than 90%. How can you be considered at the peak of tier 1? For this thing, 0 to 30% is considered low, 31 to 60% is considered medium, 61 to 90% is considered high, and above 90% is considered top." He looked at Su Yu and asked curiously, "You only have 68% of full capacity. Logically speaking, it should be an advanced level, and the kind that has just entered. How is it top?" As he said, he added, "I previously thought that you had cultivated the God-expanding technique, but I don't think so. Otherwise, it would more or less show that you, kid, are strange." Su Yu's willpower level was very strong. This meant that his willpower was not inferior to some of the peak of recuperation. That was why he was able to fight Jing Yunhui and the others without being at a disadvantage. The rating given by the machine was all peak of recuperation. Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "I told you before that I was hammered by Teacher Zhao with a sledgehammer. Have you forgotten?" "I remember." Bai Feng rolled his eyes and said, "The effect was so good. Hammering you from superior to peak, what the hell? Why didn't old Ghost Zhao hammer me? No wonder you can fight with those guys who are at the peak of recuperation. Your willpower is on par with them." After saying that, he said with some surprise, "How did you improve so quickly? All of a sudden, you reached 68% of full capacity." He remembered that he had just recuperated a few days ago. "Teacher, that heaven-rank cultivation technique, after every confrontation, it improved a lot. In fact, it was also related to Su Yu consuming the 5 elements race's blood essence and absorbing some willpower. That time, he had improved quite a bit. I forgot about that." Bai Feng nodded. Looking at Su Yu, he said in astonishment, "You brat, you're good. If you get beaten up by old Zhao again, you might reach the peak of recuperation, and your willpower will be comparable to the tenacity of flying." Su Yu was embarrassed, but he quickly changed the topic. "Teacher, aren't you also at the peak of tier 2? "Nonsense." Bai Feng said unhappily, "I'm also an expert of the multi-divine literature department, so I'm definitely stronger than an ordinary 8th level soaring. Under normal circumstances, 8th level soaring, and the level of willpower is at the upper tier of tier 2. Su Yu nodded. It was not surprising. Even Bai Feng, who was at the 7th level soaring, could defeat Hu Wensheng, not to mention that he was already at the 8th level. Next, Bai Feng introduced other machines to Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes were dazzled. He was really willing to spend his capital. Every item was worth thousands of merit points or even more than 10,000. If he sold the research center, he could really make a fortune. Not to mention those results, just these items, selling them for 200,000 to 300,000 merit points shouldn't be a problem, right? Rich people. Grandmaster was really willing to spend money. If it was Su Yu, he definitely wouldn't be willing to spend it like this. As they walked, they arrived at a small laboratory. Bai Feng gently exhaled and pointed at the laboratory. This place is where I usually do my research. Follow me in and I'll let you see your teacher's recent research results. Su Yu hurriedly followed them in. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 588, Innate Divine Text 4. Chapter 588, Chapter 157, Innate Divine Text 4. The moment he entered, Su Yu discovered that this place seemed to be filled with willpower. He was somewhat surprised. Of course, this willpower wasn't violent. It was very gentle and felt like it could be absorbed. Of course, he hadn't opened his divine aperture yet, so he couldn't absorb it. Bai Feng reminded him, the willpower in this place has been purified countless times. You are not allowed to absorb it. This is used to nourish the divine texts. The soaring realm divine texts can be manifested, but they cannot last for long. After being peeled off, you will need such willpower to nourish it so that it does not dissipate. You brat, even if you enter the soaring realm, you are not allowed to absorb it. *CK, the cost is huge. If you absorb it, I will kill you. Su Yu laughed dryly. Teacher, I won't. I'm not that kind of person. Scram. Bai Feng cursed. If you were to soar into the air, you would definitely be sucked in by me. Bai Feng ignored him. At this moment, he walked to the side of an experimental platform and waved at Su Yu. Su Yu hurriedly walked over. His eyes moved slightly. At this moment, there were actually a few divine runes floating on the experimental platform. These are the divine runes of the fire dolphin race. Bai Feng introduced, most of the fire dolphin race are warriors. There are very few civilized masters. 1 in 10,000. Back then, your grandmaster and I went to hunt countless fire dolphins and only managed to kill 3 fire dolphin civilized masters. We managed to peel off their divine runes, but they can't last long. They can only be left here. Kid, watch carefully. As he said that, the 5 divine runes on the table floated up. Bai Feng was very serious at that moment, and Su Yu was also watching intently. The 5 divine runes gradually began to fuse together, and a small part of them began to fuse together. Gradually, they began to change, and in a short while, they became like a pig. Su Yu's eyes were in a trance. It was as if he had really seen an incomparably huge pig. He had seen the corpse of a fire dolphin before. At this moment it was as if he had seen a real fire dolphin appearing before his eyes. Charge! A foreign language sounded in Su Yu's mind. It seemed to be the language of the fire dolphins. In the next moment, Su Yu hurriedly retreated. In front of him, the 5 divine runes transformed into pigs and suddenly charged towards him. Su Yu felt a powerful aura and hurriedly retreated. In the next moment, his vision blurred, and everything disappeared. Divine runes were still divine runes. The 5 divine runes dimmed a lot and scattered. Bai Feng was also sweating profusely. He quickly said, "Do you see? I used different methods to combine these 5 divine runes. In the end, I discovered that there is a way to combine them, and it can make the divine runes have a function similar to an innate skill." What does this mean? This means that after the divine runes are combined, an innate skill can really be formed. Of course, most of the fire dolphins don't have divine runes, so why can they use their innate skills? I guess that there is such a hidden divine rune in their sea of consciousness, but it hasn't been activated. When civilized masters use their innate skills, they are definitely stronger than non-civilized masters. So I'm certain that the innate skill must be related to the divine text, and it's related to the sea of consciousness. Su Yu hurriedly nodded. He saw it and hurriedly said, "Teacher, don't you feel that? It's very similar." "You found it?" "Yes." Su Yu nodded and said with some surprise, "It's very similar to the pattern of the divine text battle skill. It's a combination of several divine texts." "Right, I've also discovered it long ago." Bai Feng exhaled and said, "If that's the case, then it means that the divine literature battle technique is actually a type of innate divine writing technique that our seniors discovered. It's just that our seniors didn't connect it to the innate divine writing technique." He turned his head to look at Su Yu, "So, our innate divine writing technique has already appeared in general. The more divine runes, the better. As long as we think of a way to convert our divine runes combat techniques into innate divine runes, it will be like fusing them into one. Then, we might be able to display our true innate divine runes." Bai Feng was a little excited as he said, "At that time, we will be able to display our true strength, our full strength. No matter how many apertures you have, no matter how many divine runes you have, you will be able to unleash them at the same time. It won't just be strength without lethality." Just like Su Yu, he had 153 apertures, but could he unleash the power of all 153 apertures at the same time? No. Even if it was a heaven-rank cultivation technique, it would not be able to do so. It could only allow Su Yu to unleash the power of the apertures that had been opened by the Aries art, in addition to the power of the additional apertures that had been opened by the heaven-rank cultivation technique. Su Yu, at most, could unleash the power of close to 100 apertures. Some of the apertures that had been opened by the Aries art were unable to form a connection with the heaven-rank cultivation technique. Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, you mean that our current utilization of willpower is not enough, and so are the divine runes and the apertures. But when we master the innate divine runes, we might be able to burst out 100% of our strength?" "Yes." Bai Feng smiled and said, "Not to mention 100%, even if we burst out 80%, it would still be stronger than now. Now, our utilization of our own strength is extremely low." Su Yu took a deep breath and looked at the floating divine runes. His teacher had really discovered something amazing. Bai Feng continued, "I'm only experimenting with the divine fire dolphin language, I haven't entered the human body experimental stage yet. This thing, it's best to experiment with more divine runes, but it's a pity that you didn't soar into the sky. It looks like I'll have to be the guinea pig for the time being." Su Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "So when I fly into the sky, I'll be your guinea pig?" "Teacher, please take it easy. If you make a mistake in fusing with this thing, something bad will happen." Su Yu was no longer a noob. He could understand the risks involved. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 589, Innate Divine Text 5. Chapter 589, Chapter 157, Innate Divine Text 5. Bai Feng said nonchalantly, "It's fine, it's normal for there to be some problems with the research. When I do, I'll let you experience what it means to rise into the sky and fight Ling Yun." As he said that, he was even more excited. Rise into the sky and fight Ling Yun. Since ancient times, not many people have been able to achieve such a large stage like rising into the sky and fighting against the higher levels. Your teacher, I, will soon become the next one. Su Yu flattered, "Teacher is mighty, formidable, domineering." Scram. Bai Feng cursed, somewhat dejected, he said, "It's just that I don't have a reference. You must tell Uncle Master that I want to study him. I feel that he has the embryonic form of his innate divine text. Otherwise, without a reference, I'm afraid that I'll kill myself and I won't be able to form it." Su Yu was speechless. Teacher Lu. Needless to say, he might really be able to obtain some enlightenment from him. Bai Feng continued, "My senior uncle has actually been troubled by this. If that is really an innate divine text, then senior uncle's own divine text will definitely be rejected and unable to fuse together, unable to form a single entity. Although senior uncle is talented, his understanding of divine texts might not be as good as mine. He has quite a lot of divine prose of his own. Now that the divine prose has occupied the main position, he won't be able to display his true strength without fusing it into one, let alone using the divine prose as his own. Only by fusing it into one can I think of a way to fuse his own divine prose with this foreign divine prose. Only by fusing it into one and completely transforming it into his own divine prose can he truly utilize it. Bai Feng shook his head and said in disdain, "My uncle master is a one-track-minded man. He is not very smart. I suspect that he has been trying to merge the divine script with the foreign divine script for the past 50 years. Does he really think that he can just knead it into a ball of meat?" He shook his head in disdain. It was just like kneading a dough man. The other party kneaded it into all kinds of shapes, all kinds of dough men. You kneaded it into a ball of dough, and you want to sell it in front of other people. He suspected that Lu Wenyan did it this way. Boorish. A fake civilized master. He despised him for a moment. In any case, his senior uncle didn't know. At the side, Suyu looked at him and sighed in his heart. "Teacher, I'm here. Do you really think that I won't snitch on you?" Lu Laoshi, innate divine prose. At this moment, Suyu's emotions were also fluctuating. All these years, he actually knew some things. Lu Wenyan didn't seem to care about anything, but he couldn't help but feel a little lonely sometimes. He had seen Lu Wenyan looking in a certain direction for a long time. Now that he thought about it, wasn't he looking in the direction of the Great Xia Civilization Academy? He still couldn't let it go. Innate divine runes, left behind by the 5th generation head of the academy. And at this moment, in Nanyuan, Lu Wenyan sighed. In his sea of will, the small sun in the center became even brighter. The surrounding divine runes that were like stars squeezed hard into the sun. Just as Bai Feng had said, he was forcefully assimilating and nurturing it. As for the formation, how could Lu Wenyan have any formation? Who knew how to nurture this thing? It was completely dependent on his own experience and feelings. In any case, he felt that the divine runes left behind by his teacher seemed to have become stronger. That was enough. Perhaps, when his divine runes were completely squeezed in, he would be able to use it. Lu Wenyan was not in a hurry. He took his time. If this generation did not work, then the next generation would. That brat Suyu was doing quite well now. Perhaps he should find another person to observe him. He had to be honest, reliable, and able to withstand loneliness. If his generation could not do it, then he would do it generation after generation. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 590, Hongren, 1. Chapter 590, Chapter 158 Hongren, 1. Just as Suyu and Bai Feng were fiddling with something in the research room. Heart Cultivation Pavilion, in a large courtyard. At this moment, many people were gathered. There were a total of 8 pavilion elders in the single God language department. The academy had a total of 42 pavilion elders, of which 36 were at the Shanhai realm, and 6 were at the 9th layer of Lingyun realm. They were very old and had a lot of experience, so they also took up the position of pavilion elders. Out of the 8 elders from the single God language department, Zheng Yuming was crippled, Lu Hong's teacher was in seclusion, and the other 2 were in the Zhutian battlefield. Of those in the academy, only Zhou Mingren and the other 3 could come out. And at this moment, all 4 of them were present. Including Zheng Hong's teacher, Sun Elder. Zheng Hong was also present because he was Zheng Yuming's grandson. Zheng Hong was very calm. Even though Zheng Yuming was crippled, he did not say anything. He was just a recuperating student, and the principal had personally dealt with his grandfather, so what could he do? At this moment, Zheng Hong was still calm and silent. He silently served tea and water to the four elders, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The four elders also silently drank their tea. A moment later, Pavilion Elder Sun asked, "How is Yuming's situation?" Of the 8 divine texts, 7 have been crippled, including the main divine text. Only one dragon divine text remains. Zhou Mingren said softly. As for the physical body, it wasn't too important to a civilized master. They could just use a bit of blood essence to rebuild it. Since they weren't walking the path of the physical body, it wasn't a big deal to have a weaker physical body. 7 divine runes have been crippled, and the main divine runes have all been crippled. A white-haired old woman was a little depressed. If the main divine runes weren't crippled, it wouldn't be that serious to a mountain sea realm. But if even the main god text was destroyed, then it would really be serious. The old woman said in a low voice, "Why would Manor Head One be so decisive this time?" Yuming didn't make a move, but of course, when his aura erupted, it was indeed a little. The old woman didn't know what to say. When was the last time a student fought? To them, it was a small matter. Jing Yuming was fine, but he had to erupt with some aura. It was hard not to think of that scene. Zhou Mingren said calmly, "It may be Qin Yong's scheme. Yuming is still not awake. I suspect that Qin Yong is secretly provoking him. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that the myriad sage will teach us a lesson." Qin Yong. Speaking of Qin Yong, the few of them frowned again. Elder Sun said hesitantly, "Qin Yong wouldn't go that far. It's hard to say. Yuming wants to take charge of the library. Do you really think that Qin Yong doesn't care?" Zhou Mingren said indifferently, "Qin Yong has been under Hong Tan's tutelage for 40 years. All these years, he has been holding back in the library and not moving. Have you forgotten that this fellow wasn't a good person back then either? He was the one who expelled all the students from the polytheistic literature department. Otherwise, with Hong Tan's character, he might not have expelled them. It wasn't that the polytheistic literature department hadn't accepted any students these years. It was just that there were some people who couldn't endure it any longer and could only draw 10 divine runes in the air before they could form a divine runes battle technique. Thus, they were banished, and this was all handled by Qin Yong. As for Hong Tan, he didn't care too much about these matters. After saying a few words, Zhou Mingren waved his hand and said, "Let's discuss this matter again. Right now, Yuming is going to the heavenly battlefield. He was punished and will definitely appear in the vanguard camp. Even if the battle isn't as intense as before, he will still participate in the battle. If the divine runes aren't restored, he's dead for sure." "Old Zhou, what do you mean?" The few of them looked at Zhou Mingren. Jing Yuming was his disciple and also the branch master of their branch. They could not let him send himself to his death. Elder Sun saw that Zhou Mingren was not speaking, so he thought for a moment and said, "Old Fong and Old Ma are both in the heavenly battlefield. Let's see if we can pull some strings and send Yuming to their side." Zhou Mingren said calmly, "Even if we send him over, they might not have the time to take care of Yuming. His injuries are so serious. If he does not recover a certain level of strength, he will be courting death. Myriad Sage wants to force Yuming to his death." The few of them fell silent. Zhou Mingren said again, "So I've decided to give Yuming a main god text. Exchange for a god text." The few of them looked at him in surprise. The old woman said in surprise, "I don't think so. The matching rate of god texts is shockingly low. Those from the academy won't do." Zhou Mingren said in a low voice, "Or rather, after all these years, there's only 11 god texts that have a chance of being replaced. 11 divine inscriptions." When these words were said, the expressions of the few people changed. They knew what Zhou Mingren was talking about. The many divine inscriptions experts who had participated in that battle in the past. A total of 11 divine inscriptions had been passed down. Lu Wenyan had inherited the divine inscriptions of the fifth-generation prefect. The others, such as Xia Yinqi, Zhao Mingyue, and Hu Ping, had inherited the divine inscriptions of the Sun-Moon realm. As for the other 7 people, they had inherited the divine texts of the 7 Peak Mountain and C-tier cultivators. Out of the other 7, 6 had already fallen. They had died of old age, illness, or qi deviation. Their seas of will had collapsed and died. Now, out of the 11 people, 5 were still alive. The 11 people were all top-notch geniuses in the past. All of them had hopes of seeing the sun and moon of the mountains and seas. Now, 50 years had passed, and only these few people were left. The old woman frowned and looked at Zhou Mingren. "You mean?" Zhou Mingren said calmly, "These few years, 6 people have died, and the divine inscriptions have not continued to be passed down. If that's the case, then it must still be in the sea of consciousness. Unless it completely collapses, otherwise, the divine inscriptions that were passed down back then would not collapse so easily." The main divine inscriptions before Yumming were the divine inscriptions with the word collapse of the Protoss. Their characteristics were collapse and collapse. Zhou Mingren said slowly, and among the 6 people who died, one of them inherited a divine text that was very suitable for Yumming. Zhang Ruoling inherited the word collapse years ago. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 591, Red Man 2. Chapter 591, Chapter 158 Red Man 2. Zhang Ruoling. Hearing this name, the faces of the elders changed slightly. One of the geniuses who had been expelled in the past. Zhang Ruoling, a teacher of the Great Xia Mansion's 18th Intermediate Academy, had died of illness 9 years ago. In reality, it was probably due to his willpower being unable to bear the pressure that caused him to die. The few of them remained silent. After a long while, Elder Sun Gu said in a low voice, "Old Zhou, she's dead. Digging up her grave and digging up her corpse, it's hard to say. If this gets out, do you think you'll have a good life? The people from the Polytheistic Literature Department haven't died yet. Even if she's really dead, what about the War God Hall and the Seeker Realm if you do this? Aren't those invincible people afraid that one day they'll die and be dug up by others? Let's not talk about them. Just talk about yourself. Are you willing to have such a day?" This matter was not easy to handle. It was too taboo. Who would not have a day when they died? Not everyone was willing to take the initiative to pass down their divine inscriptions. Some people died and found a place to bury themselves. Could it be that they also wanted to be dug up one day? Zhou Mingren was silent for a moment and said, "The living are more important than the dead." "Old Zhou," Elder Sun said in a deep voice, "we have to think twice about this matter. According to my thoughts, even if we go directly to Lu Wenyan and the others, it would still be better than this. Lu Wenyan and the others are still alive. At most, they will have a reputation of bullying others. Although their reputation is not good, it is better than now. He would rather bully the living. This also had a reputation, but it was still better than bullying the dead. It was too taboo." Zhou Mingren said in a low voice, "Their divine texts are Sun-Moon realm, so they might not be suitable for Yumming. As for the other person who inherited the Shanhai realm divine texts, the divine texts were not suitable for Yumming. They were the divine texts of the demon race, so there was a huge conflict. Zhang Ruoling's should be the most suitable. But the few of them struggled. If they did this, their reputation would be tarnished. When they reached the Shanhai realm, apart from chasing after strength, they cared a lot about face and reputation. If people knew about this, wouldn't they be stabbed in the back?" Zhou Mingren knew their worries and said, "There's no need for you guys to interfere. I'll do it myself. I'll bear the blame and karma." As he said that, he looked at them and said, "I didn't look for you guys for this. I'm going to open some secret realms to strengthen Zheng Hong and the others. Also, Wen Sheng and the others need to increase their strength. Opening a high-end secret realm. This was something that had been agreed upon a few months ago. The few of them did not have any objections. Zhou Mingren hesitated for a moment before saying, Old Zhao is still in closed-door cultivation. It looks like he won't be able to come out this time. Therefore, I'm afraid that Old Zhao won't contribute anything to the opening of the secret realm. As for Lu Hong, he looked at the few of them and said, let him go in. Otherwise, he won't have the chance to enter this time. I'll take half of the resources that he needs. How about we split the remaining resources equally? The few of them considered it for a moment. Another old man, who had not said much all this while, nodded and said, sure. Lu Hong is also at the 8th level of the Soaring Heaven tier and has entered the 9th level. He can sit and watch Ling Yun. If he really enters Ling Yun, our strength will also be a little stronger. Lu Hong's strength has always been inferior to Bai Feng's. It's fine to let him in. The few pavilion elders all had a consensus that Lu Hong could enter. Zhou Mingren said again, in the air, there are Zhou Pingsheng, Lu Hong, Sun Yucheng, Li Yunmei, 6 people. In the air, 20 people can enter. In addition, Wu Yuehua's side has to give her a few slots. Hearing this, the few of them appeared somewhat helpless. Wu Yuehua, that shrew. Last time, they almost caused a ruckus because of this matter. The old woman said somewhat sullenly, on her side, we can only give her 3 slots at most. If it's too many, there aren't any. Opening a high-end mystic realm would cost a lot of money. Otherwise, they could just keep opening it. This time, it would take at least several years of their savings to open it. In addition to the cost not long ago. Thinking of this, the old woman said, how is Pingsheng's research going? I've seen the information from last time, and it feels too strange. Is it true? Too ridiculous. At that time, they found it unbelievable. But later, Suyu did unleash his talent skill, which was shown in the video. Zhou Mingren shook his head, there's no result yet, so it's hard to determine whether it's true or not. If it's fake, then it means that the Wentan Research Center may have deduced the way the iron-winged bird's talent skill works. They may have martial arts skills in this area, and Suyu may have opened these apertures. He could only make such a judgment. Suyu might have directly opened those apertures, and since he wasn't at the scene that day, he didn't see anything. Even if he was at the scene, there weren't only 1 or 2 apertures that had opened on Suyu's body. Who knew what the situation was like at that time? Did he open them himself or did his blood essence explode? The iron-winged bird's innate skill isn't difficult to deduce. The old woman said in a deep voice, of course, the cultivation methods and martial techniques that everyone deduces are not quite the same. However, even our academy has a cultivation method for the tearing skill. That day, Ping Sheng was a little anxious, so he should have observed more. Zhou Mingren shook his head and said, it's the same even if he wasn't anxious. Unless Ping Sheng's willpower goes deep into his body to investigate the condition of his openings. Once that happens, he will definitely discover it, not to mention that there are other people present. The few of them nodded silently. That was true. Suyu was not an idiot, so he would definitely find out. However, now that things had come to this, they still felt that it was a little fake. Especially since Suyu's strength had skyrocketed, did he not need to spend money to open his acupoints? Did he not need merit points? After checking Suyu's records, it seemed like he had entered the mystic realm several times. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 592, Red Man 3. Chapter 592, Chapter 158 Red Man. Of course, there was only a simple entry record, but it did not show when Suyu came out. Without money, how did Suyu get in? Jing Yunhui. Su Yu. A thought arose in their hearts. These two brats might have conspired to scam them. 100,000 merit points. They were really bold. However, they were still unable to confirm it. They would try again after a period of time. At the side, Zheng Hong, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, Jing Yunhui and Su Yu aren't as stiff as they look. Logically speaking, Su Yu's Heaven Splitter has already lost to Jing Yunhui. However, I've taken a look and saw that Su Yu was very proficient in using the shattering elements previously. There was no need to say too much. With just one sentence, the expressions of the few of them changed slightly. You've already lost in Heaven-breaking kill, yet you still managed to learn the essence-shattering technique. You're really a genius, and you're even very proficient in it. Could it be that you've bought another book of will? The old woman suddenly looked at him and said, I heard that you lost to him in the previous Divine Inscriptions competition. Yes. Zheng Hong apologized, I lost. He has many Divine Inscriptions, and there are 2 Tier 2 Divine Inscriptions among them. He has already sketched out the embryonic form of the Divine Inscriptions battle technique. In addition, he might have learned other techniques that can enhance willpower, and they're very powerful. Techniques to strengthen willpower, the few of them looked at each other. Zhou Mingren said, it might be the soul-expanding technique. Soul-expanding technique. Elder Sun frowned and said, Zhao Li has a bad temper. He won't give face to anyone. When I looked for him in the past, I wanted to discuss it with him, but he ignored me and passed it to Su Yu. I'm not too sure. Zhou Mingren couldn't say much either. At this moment, he also thought of Zheng Hong and said, you still lack one divine inscription, right? Yes. Zheng Hong said respectfully, Grandmaster, we still lack one piece of the Valindivine script. I got it, old Sunday. Later, give him more of the will in this area, the original 50 years ago. In addition, Zheng Hong, you also go to the mystic realm this time. Thank you, Grandmaster. Zheng Hong replied respectfully and then looked at the elders and greeted them one by one. Elder Sun was his teacher. At this moment, he also nodded and didn't have any objections. You can leave first. After giving Zheng Hong some benefits, Zhou Mingren waved his hand and sent him away. After he left, Zhou Mingren suddenly sighed and said, Old Sun, please give me some pointers. Yuming is injured. This kid, also, let those kids below get closer to him. With Qi Feng injured, I suddenly realized a problem. The few of them looked at him. Zhou Mingren said regretfully, we don't have any kinship anymore. Su Yu crippled Qi Feng to avenge Wu Jia. Qi Feng was crippled, and we didn't say anything. How many kids below are willing to stand up for him? When he said this, the few of them were a little silent and embarrassed. Single divine text, Zhou Mingren sighed again and said, I originally thought that it would be good to have a fight. If we don't fight, how can we become stronger? In the end, as we fought, we lost all our kinship. We're even worse than outsiders. The few of them did not speak. Zhou Mingren did not say anything when he saw this. As for Zheng Hong, he did not know what he was thinking. He was very calm, very calm. He even knew that he had to fight for some benefits for himself at this time. If he wanted to hold his anger and seek revenge on Su Yu, it would be fine. However, he was afraid that he did not take it seriously at all. His grandfather did not even care. He was not afraid that his subordinates would fight for power and benefits. He was also not afraid that they would play tricks on him. That was a good thing. What he was afraid of was that there would really be no feelings left. It would all become benefits. All of you go back. When you go back, tell your little fellows that Su Yu's side will continue to be suppressed. They will be even more ruthless than before. Zhou Mingren suddenly said coldly, it's good to have an enemy. If there are no more opponents, our own people will fight to the death. The stronger Su Yu is, the better. Let them have a reason to fight. Otherwise, if they continue to fight among themselves, they will become a joke. Su Yu's existence was not a big deal to him. Zheng Yiming suppressed the multi-god literature department for personal revenge. As for Zhou Mingren, he wanted to make the single-god literature department more united. In Zhou Mingren's opinion, it was actually a bad thing that the multi-god literature department did not come out to fight these years. That old ghost Hong Tan. When you threw a punch, he withdrew. It was as if he hit the air, making people feel aggrieved. Zhou Mingren even suspected that this fellow Hong Tan was doing it on purpose. He was like a turtle, but in the end, the single divine when factions started fighting themselves. Just these few pavilion elders weren't harmonious. Moreover, the people below had long been fighting even more ferociously than outsiders. Now that Su Yu had appeared, in his opinion, it was really a good thing. He even hoped that he could hold on for a period of time and not collapse so quickly. If Su Yu collapsed, then there would be internal strife later on. Back when Bai Feng soared into the sky, he even stepped out to fight for it. Hence, Lu Hong, Hu Wensheng, and the other genius teaching assistants appeared. When Bai Feng also followed Hong Tan and retreated, the multi-divine literature department really became cotton. The few of them were just about to leave when Elder Sun suddenly turned around and said, "I forgot to mention that Xia Yuan will be back soon. Is the library pavilion still going to fight for it or not?" "Yes." Zhou Mingren said firmly, "Of course we are." The top 100 students only had one mission now, which was to snipe Wuxia. Before the end of the year, they must not let Wuxia step into the top 100. Not only the top 100 students, but the other students as well. Those who are not in the top 100, keep an eye on Wuxia. Zhou Mingren shouted, "We share the same enemy. Let the students target Wuxia and Su Yu. If we don't defeat these two, what right do they have to fight among themselves?" "Got it." Elder Sun nodded. This was a good thing.